the brain is trained for that negativity, they will read that one negative comment and then they will call it out. And what does that train the chat to do? Oh, if we say that kind of stuff, we get that kind of reinforcement.
That pattern is like reinforced. They do it like I don't know. It's super common.
I was just confused. I didn't even understand what xQc was saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so thank you guys very much for coming on. Really appreciate it. So we're doing Mod Appreciation Week this week, and so I was hoping to ask you guys some questions about what your communities are like. And kind of thinking, I sent y'all kind of a quick blurb, but why don't we just start off with introductions, and why don't y'all tell us? I don't think you guys need introduction, but as I understand, sometimes people may not know who you are, which boggles my mind. But if you guys, so y'all are all streamers, so could you please just tell us a little bit about, what you guys do and what kind of streams you run? You want to get started, Anita?
I'm a twat. I'm sweet Anita. I am a variety streamer. I play all sorts of games. I have Tourette syndrome. You may have noticed by now.
Awesome. Destiny, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Destiny. I do video games and politics. At this point, I'm not sure which one I'm known more for, but yeah.
Lily?
I'm Lily. I do games, art, music, whatever I feel like.
Cool. And Devin, are you around?
I'm having a sound problem, but it looks like it's fixed. So yes.
You want to tell us?
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming. Can you tell us? Can you tell us?
Super involved in this and thought a lot about it. So I'm really happy to be here. Also, it's just good to talk to you again. It's been a super long time.
Yeah, man. Let me just find. Okay.
I go to the bathroom for a sec. Sorry.
Sure. So, while Lily's running to the bathroom, so we'll see if xQc is joining us or not. But so I just was hoping to hear from you guys because y'all have built, various communities, generally speaking, good and wholesome communities. I really appreciate participating in the communities that y'all have built. I think a lot of the, essentially a lot of people from our community have come from the communities that you guys have grown. Which in turn has been awesome because you guys have grown like pretty awesome communities. And so I was just hoping to talk a little bit today about, how do you guys think a community evolves to be like a healthy community versus a toxic community? And then I've kind of got a list of questions if things stall, but if any of y'all want to kind of kick things off.
That's a pretty open-ended question.
Yeah. So I tend to start with those.
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah. I mean, if nobody else wants to take the lead, I guess like the general way that I view communities on Twitch is I feel like communities become kind of a reflection of the streamers themselves.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'd start there. I don't know where to go from that.
Yeah, I can kind of follow up with that. Or Devin, you said you had a lot of thoughts, so I don't know if you want to.
I do. I'm just still getting my notes together. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. So, Destiny, let me ask you a question. You say that communities take the lead from the streamers. So, what do you think you model for your community?
Is this a personal you, or is this like you as a streamer?
No,
like are you asking me personally?
Yeah. So like you're saying that basically communities become reflections of a particular streamer. So what do you see in your stream, in your community that you like or don't like, or what do you think kind of comes from you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I have a personal set of values that I try to adhere to while I interact with other people, especially since I do political content. These conversations can get incredibly dicey sometimes. So I'll be looking for like outlier behavior from what I see generally on Twitch. Some behaviors that my community exhibit that I'm really proud of is we try to stay away from the more common, like lowball-y things. So for instance, I'm very big on not making fun of how people look, regardless of if they're short or, people say they're ugly or whatever. Like I try to like pretty heavily moderate these types of comments away from people. That would be like a positive thing about my community. Maybe one negative thing about my community is that I notice they're incredibly hostile against people that aren't very well spoken and very quick to put together like complicated ideas and like be a debate lord. So if I'm having like a more casual conversation with somebody that's not super used to that, my community can be very quick to like judge and harp on them. So that would be like a positive and a negative trait that my community exhibits that might come from me, I would say.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that, man. Welcome, Felix. Can you hear us?
Hello. So yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. So
Hello?
we're talking today just
Okay.
a little bit about. So this week is like Mod Appreciation Week for us at Healthy Gamer, and we've been thinking a lot about communities and like how we build them and how to make them good. Thinking a little bit about toxicity within Twitch and communities and sort of how to deal with that too. So I'm hoping to have kind of an open discussion about your experience as a streamer and how you interact with the community that you built. If that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, of course. So sorry for being late, by the way. I looked at you guys being late, and I booted up a game of Omega Overwatch, and I was late, so I'm sorry.
No problem, man. I think it's pretty chill. Yeah. Anybody else want to kind of chime in about what they like about their community versus maybe something that they wish their community did a little differently?
I think I'm ready to go.
Take it away,
sorry,
Devin.
it took me a couple of minutes to get everything going. So I think there's three elements that I tried to sort of focus on for this discussion, right? I think there's personal, there's creator, and there's culture. So before I get into my own stuff, which I don't know how relevant it is because I'm not a full-time broadcaster, although I've worked really hard on creating a community, dealt with a lot of harassment. I think personal is like what you as an individual, what we as individuals view our community should be. Creator level is like, as streamers, what should we do? And like, how should we behave? And cultural is like Twitch as a whole, Reddit, Twitter. And so I think those three levels are kind of where we're going to be interacting today.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I can go on any three.
Sorry, Devin, can you give me those bullet points again?
Yeah. This is just my own idea, though, right? Like, I this is not official.
He's
at all.
trolling you. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Excuse me. This is a positive
Yeah.
environment today, okay?
No. I wasn't kidding. I mean,
Yeah, I
like,
think he's serious here. Yeah. Yeah, I'll type it in Discord.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's personal,
Yeah.
creator, and community. Right. So
Yeah.
personally,
or I use the word cultural, I think, because I think that culture is a really big aspect of I don't want to say the problem, but the situation, right?
and what is the
The-
situation?
I have a
Yeah, go for it, Felix.
okay, Devin. I have something. What would you classify something like a crossover? What if you do something on like a personal level or whatever that gets put somewhere, and some people come from there and they're a certain way or whatever? What would that be?
Everything gets influenced by everything else, right? So like if us personally are a part of Twitch, are a part of Reddit and these platforms, so at some point like you and a lot of times become kind of like part of the culture or help define it because you're literally that significant of a broadcaster. A lot of people on this call are like that doesn't apply as much to like myself, for example, but like you can actually make decisions that influence the culture itself, which is pretty cool. And I think
Oh.
worth talking about. Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that xQc is the number, depending on the day, between number one and top three broadcasters on the platform, right? So like, if xQc does something that, so what going off what Destiny said, I think like if things become a reflection of the broadcaster. If xQc, as much as he gets memed on, talks about a lot of serious stuff, especially like at the end of his streams, I watch, he talks about a lot of important stuff. The way that he has those conversations, he's literally talking to a stadium of people, right? There's anywhere between 20 to 30,000 people in there, and all of those people have influence and go out. And so like, depending on how he chooses to use that impact, can be positive or negative for the entire culture of Twitch. Because xQc accounts for like 1 or 2% of the live viewership audience of Twitch at any given time, which is 1 in 100 people on the website. It's kind of insane to think about, but that's actually how big he is.
And so what would you guys say is the culture of Twitch? another broad open-ended question. Like, what are important features of it? Maybe is another way to put it.
I think that's a really hard question to answer. I think it's important to understand that I think that the Twitch cultures are very heavily segmented. So, for instance, there is a definite culture around. Maybe you could draw like a broad box around like video game streams. There's like a different culture broadly around like just chatting streams. There's a different culture around different art streams and the ASMR streams. I feel like at this point, as Twitch has expanded into different content, it's hard to point to like one unifying culture because it seems like there is, I don't want to say disconnect because that sounds negative, but there are like very different communities that inhabit Twitch on a broad level, I think.
Cool. So I just want to get, I'm kind of curious to get Lily's thoughts and Sweet Anita's thoughts. So like, can y'all tell us a little bit about what you appreciate about the culture that your community has, and maybe one thing that you wish was a little bit different?
Yeah, sorry, Steven. Can you stop messaging me like it's?
I'm
rude. I
not
don't
doing
know
anything.
why
I
you
don't even know
have
what
to
she's
do that.
talking
He's-
about right now. I'm not
Because
doing
it
anything. Stop
couldn't
blaming me.
put
Stop
the
blaming me. Stop
link
blaming me.
to
Why are you doing this right now? Can you please focus?
Sorry. Anyway, the culture of Twitch.
Yeah, I mean, or just your own community and what you appreciate about it. And
My community. I've been streaming for a really long time, so I think like since the beginning, I've gotten a lot of bad comments. So I feel like now my mods are really jaded and they are very strict. So if there's anyone being rude or disrespectful, we try to like put an end to it ASAP because we're so used to it. In the end, it has made this very like, I would say for the most part, I really like my community. They're very nice and welcoming, and yeah, I try to make that kind of community, I guess.
and how do you do that?
It's very low tolerance. If anyone's being rude to my friends or me or just being disrespectful in general, it's just an auto ban.
Okay.
We're very strict on that. Yeah.
Okay. And then I have kind of a is it okay if I ask like one or two other questions? Like these are, and anyone can take these. But so like, why do you think people are rude or disrespectful? Like, why do people show up in your chat and are like rude or disrespectful? Like, why does that happen?
Just anonymous. Like, if people are anonymous on the internet, they can say whatever they want. And it's very easy to judge people. So, for example, my voice, right? They hear my voice. Oh, her voice is fake. What an attention over. It's so easy to like type that and not really suffer any repercussion. It doesn't really matter. So.
I have something to say about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Fuck off. So I kind of feel like there's a lot of loneliness on Twitch. I always say like Twitch is kind of a symptom of loneliness because we are the kind of entertainment that chases away the silence in the room. We're company while you clean it or while you get on with work at home and things like that. And I kind of feel like trolling can be a symptom of loneliness too. So it's kind of compounded on platforms like these specifically because for some people, any kind of attention is attention. When people are lonely and they desperately crave a reaction, they don't know how to get it in a positive way. Maybe they don't feel good enough. Maybe they don't feel smart enough. Maybe they don't feel funny enough. Maybe they have anxiety. Maybe they have loads of obstacles mentally that make it seem impossible to get a positive reaction, but they still crave a reaction. There's certain age demographics that are really common. Age, gender, like economic status, all these sorts of things. There's a pattern where certain kinds of people dealing with certain kinds of things end up being abusive for company. And I think that that's going to be rife on a place like Twitch. And Twitch is probably one of the places where like measures in specific need to be slightly tighter just because it's just such a risk factor here.
Fascinating.
Oh,
Felix, I saw you
awesome.
nodding.
Yeah, I nodded because I get that a lot. I get that a lot. So, like, I'll have like a crazy, even off stream, like a crazy series of DMs, like big schnoz, big schnoz, big schnoz, big schnoz, ugly hair, and then I'll be like, dude, shut up, man, and I'd be like, oh my god, guys, I got an xQc react, and then like that pattern is like reinforced. They do it like I don't know, it's super common.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just confused. I didn't even understand what xQc was saying.
Oh, okay. Basically,
That
like
was that a sentence?
Yeah, something like that. So
No,
but
I mean
like,
I understood what your point was. Like, what do they DM you? I didn't understand what.
a bunch of like pseudo insults or whatever.
What does
or
that
like,
even mean? Did you say
big
big?
schnoz?
Yeah, big
Big schnoz.
schnoz.
Yeah, big schnoz.
Is that nose?
Like
Yeah.
schnoz.
Yeah,
Oh.
schnozer.
I was just like, okay. Yeah, I was just confused. I was like, is that insult?
Yeah,
like-
so they'll spam something like that,
Okay.
and doesn't matter how I react. Like if I give it any sort of attention, like that person sometimes will be like euphoric sometimes, and I think I see a problem in there, but
Yeah.
So,
Destiny, Devin.
well,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to add on real quick just to what xQc and you guys are saying is that it's kind of sad and it's kind of funny that there's like a lot of analogs to like child rearing, where sometimes you get a child that acts out, and sometimes the reason why they do that is because they just want attention. And depending on the type of attention you give them, even if it's negative, some children see it as positive and they'll continue to act out as long as you give them that type of attention they're craving. Sometimes you see like similar behavior in Twitch chatters. They'll even admit it sometimes too, like, well, yeah, like the only time you pay attention to us is when we troll the fuck out of you. And it's like, oh, okay, well.
That's actually, that last part though is actually so important.
Yep.
I feel like a huge part of the problem on Twitch is that a lot of broadcasters, especially prominent broadcasters, they will scroll through 100 different messages that are like, "You're such a positive broadcaster. You're freaking awesome." And because the brain is trained for that negativity, they will read that one negative comment and then they will call it out. And what does that train the chat to do? Oh, if we say that kind of stuff, we get that kind of reinforcement, right? And in the same way, one of the most effective ways that I have like personally cleaned up my community, and I'm really proud of it, I will look for a nice comment in chat and I will gift that person a sub. One sub, like I will gift that person a sub and say, "Hey, that is a super awesome thing for you to say. I hope you come back." And that in that same way reinforces every single other person in the chat. Like, okay, that's how I get attention.
Hey, Devin, you know what I do? Sometimes I can't find one. You know what I do? I just make one up. I say, hey,
Oh,
John.
that's awesome.
John says, "Wow, this is such a super good stream. I'm gonna donate 100 subs. Much love." All right, thanks, man. I appreciate that a lot.
That's actually amazing.
That's funny.
I don't know if there's like a subtle problem there because he can't find a single good comment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, and any other thoughts? I know a lot of people wanted to kind of chime in. Okay.
Who me?
Oh.
Who me?
Well, I was just going to say, Anita, if you want to tell us a little bit about like your experience, about what you like and maybe what you would want to change or don't appreciate about your community.
Well, I feel like a lot of people with neurological conditions and things take refuge in my community. So we're especially protective because people with Tourette syndrome especially tend to come to my community because everyone there knows what Tourette syndrome is. So it means that a lot more people are going to be accepting of them in voice calls and play games with them and not judge them and believe them. And, you know, it's very characteristic for people with Tourette syndrome to come under a lot of doubt. Press X. And the thing with that is, it means that we have a lot to handle because I stream with other people with Tourette's a lot. I hang out with people with Tourette's, and so I kind of feel like a lot of pressure and responsibility to respond well to doubt, because I kind of feel like when I have so many viewers that have it, looking on, they're seeing those messages and kind of relating to that kind of feeling of persecution. This is how people think of me and all this sort of stuff. I want it out. I want it out of my chat. I want it out of my community immediately. And yeah, same thing as Lily. My mods are quite jaded at this point too, and you know, quite snappy with the no, not even gonna tolerate it. And yeah, it's a shame because in the beginning we had a lot of people that are very toxic, and a lot of those people messaged me over the months saying, you know what, I've kind of changed after watching this and I've rethought through a lot of things. And I feel like now that we have to be more rigid to protect the community, I'm kind of sad that, you know, we can't really give people the space to grow anymore, because, you know, if they're not to a certain level of development, they can't really be here. And so it's kind of like a double-edged sword. I love my community and I love that I'm a refuge, but it means that, you know, something that used to make a big difference and used to change a lot of people is kind of diminishing.
Yeah, wow. I think the mods really sometimes feel to me like to be the unsung heroes of Twitch and our communities, because they do deal with a lot of the stuff on the front lines, or all of it. I'm kind of curious. So you guys have both said that your mods have become jaded. How does a mod become jaded? What happens? Felix.
Oh, go
Okay.
He jumped first. Hit the buzzer.
I feel like sometimes somebody will action away and others will, and it'll escalate to whatever, and the pattern becomes so like obvious that they can see the very root of it and the very where it begins, and they're like, I see this is going, stop, done. Oh, this guy's saying this, we know it's next, done, kind of type of thing. I think.
see.
But Lily can continue.
I think in the beginning, it's like if you get a bad comment, okay, maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe like we can talk to them. You have that, I think, hope. But as time goes on and as years go on and you maybe get more viewers and it gets harder and harder, and I don't expect anyone to really give every single bad thing they see like a second chance. I don't have time for that. I don't have the effort for that. I don't have the emotional capacity for that anymore. So I think as time goes on, you want to just nip it in the bud, and that's it.
Yeah, I think the problem is that like a lot of harassment and a lot of genuine just like questioning can start off with the same line of text, and after you've dealt with like so much, people sometimes just immediately start banning because it's like I don't even want to go down that road. I play League with Lily, so to use her as an example, like there might be somebody that comes into chat and legitimately asks like, "What's up with her voice?" and you could respond and be like, "Oh, that's just how she sounds." And like some of the times, or I don't even know if it'd be most of the time, they'll be like, "Oh, okay," and that's it. But then other times people use that as like "Oh, well, is she faking?" Blah blah blah, and then it'll be like a whole fight. And I think at some point it's like, if somebody just comes in and asks an innocent question, like, okay, just you're banned, fuck you, because you just assume they're trolling. And I think mods sometimes can go down that road where it's like you don't want to have to test every single potentially stupid question to see if it's a genuine inquiry or if it's just somebody using it as like a platform to start basically trolling or saying dumb stuff in chat.
Interesting. So I'm almost hearing like a sense that mods get kind of worn down. Like they just don't have, like Lily said, you just don't have the emotional investment or time in your day to take like something that could actually be like a genuine inquiry, and just you don't have the time.
Some people pay mods to avoid this, like people like Co-Carnage, or for example, like we'll have an actual mod team that they pay on salary to do this, and that'll somewhat circumvent that.
To pay to do what?
A variety of things. So community organization, managing Discord, managing chat on an active basis, setting the broadcaster reminders, handling giveaways, correspondence between people that want to get unbanned, things like that.
Updating ban lists for certain games and certain events.
Yep.
I'm sorry, a ban list, or
basically, let's say a new game comes out and it's a certain character or whatever, they'll like update ban lists on the fly, like George dies, or Felix breaks his leg, like they'll like update ban lists for certain games or events so that nothing even gets there.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Have there been changes kind of related to that? Anyone else want to kind of add anything, general stuff about mods becoming jaded, or yeah?
No, not about that.
Okay. So let me ask you guys, so like a lot of times, like Felix said, we'll kind of make some changes that may be specific to a particular event. I know especially recently, like there's been a lot of stuff around the Me Too movement and mental health, with a couple of prominent suicides amongst, or deaths amongst popular streamers. Do you guys get the sense that there are like changes that are happening around these two things, like in your communities or in Twitch as a whole?
Sorry, what are these two events?
So like the Me Too movement, so a lot of people coming out around like inappropriate sexual behavior within the gaming community. I know some communities have been hit harder by others. And then also I think mental health has been more front and center with a couple of prominent deaths from creators. As well as I just on our Friday stream, the CDC, which is the American Center for Disease Control, put out a pretty important bulletin on mental health where like serious suicidality is up by 11% during COVID. And so do you guys get the sense that with some of the stuff that's been happening in our communities that there are changes to culture, or not really?
I
feel like
wish I could say that there is. I feel like nothing has changed. I feel like we had like 2 days of, oh yeah, we're gonna do it, and like a couple of threads on Reddit, and then absolutely everything is the same.
So I'll be a little bit more optimistic. I feel like what usually happens
Yeah.
when things like this happen is you get like some inciting event. So either a prominent creator death or a Me Too thing. And what'll happen is we will rubber band really far out to where like everybody is on top of mental health. Everybody is saying like, okay, these kinds of sexually inappropriate comments are not okay. And then what happens is we eventually, like after, Devin said maybe a couple days of this, we kind of go back and we settle. But I feel like that new norm that we settle at is usually a little bit better than where we were before. We're definitely not as attentive as, maybe the day after or a couple days after a big event. But I do feel like we end up settling, kind of like when a streamer gets a big brief like burst of popularity. When they settle back in viewership, they're not like at that high, but they're a little bit higher than they were before. And I hope that like that's where the communities end up like settling. Yeah.
I'm curious, especially from Lily and Anita. I mean, I think as female streamers, their perspective could be different.
I'd like to believe that, yeah. I was gonna say something similar to Devin where, oh, he gave it 2 days. I was gonna say like a week or 2 weeks or...
What if it has changed? I don't see like perception wise. Yeah.
I think if it did change, it was very like subtle, very small. But it's, again, I feel so jaded. I don't know. I see like a lot of people shitting on my roommate, especially, and it's gotten worse over the time, which makes me feel very frustrated. Like, did we not learn anything? Are we actually making changes? Like, are we, taking a step forward? I don't know. So I feel a little, I'm not as eloquent as the rest of you, sorry.
I think you're really eloquent.
I heard awkward and no. Okay.
No, I mean, I think you use simple words, Lily, which I think makes for conveying things very well. But let me ask you, so it seems like maybe communities have kind of fallen back into like bullying, defamation, toxicity. Like, how does so someone who's relatively new to Twitch, like, what's going on there? Like, how is it that everyone is so like compassionate for, let's say, 2 days to 1 week? And, maybe the new norm is a little bit better, but like Lily's saying that there's even more toxicity towards one of her roommates after this stuff.
I've got something to say about that. I kind of feel like this is habitual. This isn't just some thing where people just aren't aware of the power of their words. It's how people have existed long term, and habits are hard to break. The way that you currently exist is a routine, and the way you engage with streamers is a routine. The way you judge things, your view of the world, your view of women, your view of victims of sexual abuse, your view of people who are accused, all of these things are almost, they're kind of borderline intrinsic. Like, they're very, very difficult to shift. And some event, no matter how big, isn't always an instant fix or an instant cure. It takes lots of incremental reminders and a slow and subtle shift. And that's a hard and exhausting battle, especially for the people who are being called liars and the kind of people who've gone through horrible things and are bullied for talking about it. And the people who don't have the perfect body or the kind of ideal that Twitch chat demands and will punish you for not being. These standards don't disappear in an incident; they are worn away. And I would never expect anything that's transpired lately to suddenly transform every single person on Twitch. I think that it's a cultural shift that's needed, and it's even harder because it's a global shift, because it's kind of like a worldwide thing. It's not just like all people in one country.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I don't think that anybody or any giant movement changes everything overnight. It's always a very gradual process. To go back a little bit, to bring up a political example, I remember that like New York City after 9/11 was a very different place than it was immediately, prior to those attacks, where everybody was being a lot nicer to each other. People were being like incredibly courteous in a very un-New York-like fashion. But obviously, if you go there today, it's not the way that it was, immediately following 9/11. I think it's pretty natural that a big event will shift people's ideas for a little bit, but to actually maintain that shift requires like a deliberate effort over time to get people to change their habits. Because like Anita said, like these things are set over years or decades or generations, depending on the behavior. You're not just going to have one big event that's going to change that overnight. It requires constant reminders.
Also,
yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, you go, man. You got it, man.
Okay. Dr. K, I think a really good way that you would relate to this is Western versus Eastern medicine is the way that I look at this, right? Where Eastern medicine culturally tends to be more preventative. And in that sense, we need these sort of awareness measures, talking about this, doing panels like this. Whereas then you have like the Western medicine, which is like direct symptomatic surgery, right? You go in, you cut out the root of the problem. That's like the banning, the enforcement. And I think those are the two sides of it that two sides of the coin that sort of define this situation.
Devin, I just fell in love with you a little bit with that analogy.
I thought you'd love it. And like it comes down, the final issue is awareness, right? Just like it is in psychology. Yeah.
Felix, what did you want to say?
Love it.
Just what I noticed is that it feels to me like sometimes like it doesn't matter what somebody does, as long as something moves. Like they get that like feedback loop almost, right? And just like, let's say, I don't know, this will be a little bit more elaborate. Like a good example, like the other day we're playing a game online and we leaked the server, right? And I'm sure like everybody was like enjoying the content and having a good time, and somebody like kept like DDoSing the server or like crashing it, right? And even though that person might have been like enjoying the content or whatever, or like actually enjoy these creators or like was having fun, just the impact, even negative or positive, doesn't matter. Just seeing like his actions do something is like what they want or something, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing from you is that like there's some kind of reinforcement. Even if the person likes the content creator, they'll DDoS
if they have an
anyway.
impact. Yeah, even if just having an impact is enough, whatever. So somebody's saying like a really bad comment to like Lily's roommate, them reading it or them doing something about it, even if not immediately on broadcast, like kind of makes them like fulfilled in a certain way.
Yeah, so you mentioned.
Yeah,
go ahead, Destiny.
I was gonna add real quick, like it's always frustrating because as a streamer, you think like, okay, like is there something I can do to make it so this viewer won't do this? But literally any reaction, it will like sustain their thing. Like if they're DDoSing something, you're like, okay, well, you know what, guys, this is what you're gonna do. I'm just gonna stop streaming. Like they'll see that as a win. Or if you're like, okay, well, we're gonna suffer through it and try to do it, they'll see that as a win. Like, it's one of the big reasons why, and every streamer here knows this. If you get like swatted or DDoSed, like you can't mention it at all. You can never, ever, ever, ever talk about that or bring it up, because as soon as you give any type of like air to it or voice to it, they're getting like that attention that they so desperately need, right? So you have to make up an excuse like, I have to go, I got an emergency call or whatever. Because as soon as people hear something, they're like, oh yeah, like that's me, I got it. Like, oh God, that reinforcement is so addictive to the person that's like engaging in that behavior, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's like an extremely rapid slippery slope. Once that starts happening, if you don't take the measures that are required to like contain whatever, it goes downhill like super fast, right? So if somebody gets a hold of like, oh wait, that's his actual phone number. Oh, bunch of phone calls, bunch of pizzas, bunch of packages, like it, you know.
Wow. So Felix, earlier you mentioned people almost feel euphoric when they're like big schnoz, and then you like respond to them. So like it's interesting because you use the word euphoria. You guys are talking about like reinforcement and acting out, and like drawing parallels to like neglected children, and as funny as we are, I mean, I'm genuinely like kind of curious about this group of people on Twitch and within our community, and like what's up with them. Like I don't know who they are. I don't know what motivates them. Like from the outside looking in, you guys have noticed, first of all, that like the behavior is very easy to reinforce, right? And then unless you, like Lily said, like nip it in the bud, like they're going to keep doing it. There's like, we're hearing slippery slope. You can't reinforce anything. You can't react. You just have to ignore it completely. And so I sort of get that from like a behavioral reinforcement standpoint, but like, what do you think is going on in our community where like this kind of stuff is happening? Like, why? Like, why does someone feel euphoric from getting Felix to react to something?
I think this doesn't answer the question, but just to frame it a little bit, we have to keep in mind that this is a very, very small percentage of the community, right? So the vocal minority thing is like really important here because it's not only a small percentage of Twitch chatters, it's actually also most people don't chat on Twitch, right? Most people just lurk. They just kind of chill out, watch you on the other screen. Like Anita said, that we're kind of like companions for household cleaning or whatever, gaming or whatever. It's important to put that in that frame because I think we can address the problem easier if we know what we're dealing with a very small percentage of people.
Great point.
I think in terms of like why it's addictive, I mean, like these are just like really well-known marketing things, right? When you engage with a streamer, any type of personal feedback makes you feel good. We all rely on this for donations, for instance, right? When you get a donation, people like to see their message on stream. You know, they have the spotlight, they've got the attention of the streamer for just a small period of time. People that engage in, even if it's harassing behavior, like that same type of attention, whether it's positive or negative. Any attention is attention.
Interesting. And so, like, if we kind of think about Devin's point of this is ultimately a small group of people, I think it kind of makes me think that like maybe it's happening right now where my mind tends to focus on those people, and instead like maybe what we should be talking about is like the vast silent majority, right? So
which is why I suggested encouraging positivity. Yeah. So can I give a corollary example here real quick? So League of Legends recently had an enormous problem with, well, this is not recent, has had an ongoing problem with toxicity. But pretty recently, one of the prominent broadcasters, Voyboy, came out with like a really popular video on Twitter talking about how essentially every single game at high elo is just like inting people running into towers and dying and just over and over again, right? And it's just this like insurmountable problem. And I was talking about this and coming from League of Legends, like trying to think about how you address this. And the thing is, because you're dealing with at that point in Challenger, you're dealing with maybe 600 to 1,000 players, like between Challenger and Master Elo. You could actually target and force that culturally. And so the way I would translate is like Riot Games actually comes in and observes those games, because those are the games that the streamers are actually broadcasting, which means that if Riot shows a public display on that level, they're not going to tolerate that kind of toxicity and they have that kind of attention. That culturally filters out into other games, into like the lesser elo games. In the same way, we can do that preventatively, right? Via large broadcasts. If we demonstrate across most large broadcasters that this is not an okay behavior. The problem is we don't have that kind of cohesion because it's not a single company and Twitch doesn't care to enforce it. Right.
I feel like there are a couple of things that Riot could do as well. Like I know, borrowing from Dota, like why is there no low priority queue? Like if you've been reported so many times, you should get dumped into a low prior queue where you're not allowed to queue with people that have like high honor or something. They implemented the honor system too, which goes in line with that reinforcing positive behavior. But like I don't know I have no idea how the honor system works. I don't know
because 80% of the player base will be in there.
Yeah, good. Throw them in there. That's fine. Dude, make it longer queues or something. Like, geez.
So this is the weird thing. So Felix, did you want to say something else? I saw you kind of. I wasn't sure if you were waving at someone or wanted to.
Oh no, I usually do that for raise my hand.
Yeah. Okay.
Raise my hand to talk.
Yeah.
I found out to be very healthy in discussions to raise my hand. I know people that sometimes don't like it. I think it's good. Do you think it's good? Is it a good psychological thing?
Yeah. Go. Just tell me. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I want to chime in. I feel like cheaters, people who cheat in games. And sometimes I would get target sniped by one guy and he'd throw on purpose, like over and over and like day in, day out. And it was boggling my mind that nobody was working at Blizzard, sitting at a desk, who wouldn't just like ban him or like punish him, like even live or in a certain time frame, where it's everybody like, yo guys, look, your actions just had an impact. Like your actions got you punished or something. And it shows everybody like a very like a strong feeling, like to see it directly live that their behavior is being punished. But it never happens. And I always wondered why it's not happening. And also, what I also don't like is toxicity is a thing in competitive games and online games, and I've said this a million times. Toxicity is not okay, and being mauled and being negative towards people, but in competitive games it will happen, right? And I think there's evil in some players where they know that some people are on edge or are about to get mad or about to explode, and they're going to fish it out of them with passive aggressive behavior. And I think that's absolutely unacceptable, and that should also be punished. But nothing is done against it either. So I don't even know.
As somebody that has, I mean, a few of us here, or maybe you and me, for like competitive gaming or ladders or whatever, I like this might be an unpopular take or maybe too edgy of an take. I don't mind toxicity in games. If people want to be like really brutal, there's like a mute function for that. What I hate is when my own goddamn teammates are toxic.
Yeah.
Like if the enemy team wants to flame the fuck out of the other enemy team, that's fine, dude. Say whatever crazy, hateful stuff. Okay, whatever. I'll mute you. But dude, when your own teammates are griefing you, it is literal hell. You are trapped with like people. It's like you're in a bucket of crabs. Yeah, and they're like pulling you down. Like I'm gonna lose.
Right.
Like,
And you're
oh
already
my
having
God, that's the worst feeling in the world.
And you're already having a bad game, right? And you're still trying to, I care, dude. And you do a gank, and then your team says, "Nice gank, Lee Sin," and you're like, "Dude, really, man?" And then you're about to blow up, and it's like, "Nice flash, bro."
Yeah.
And it's like, "Holy shit!" Now I'm about to lose my mind, dude.
Are there real life examples? Like, do people that play basketball, do they just like throw it like out of bounds over and over again? Or like, do people play football just does anybody troll in real life like this? I feel like it's only online where people just like troll the fuck out of their own teammates. It's like, dude, are you serious right now? God, that irritates the fuck out of me. Ugh.
Yeah, so it's interesting. A very good friend of mine was like one of the first streamers on the internet. Like he started streaming like I think maybe late 90s or early 2000s. And this was before Twitch or even Justin TV. And the interesting thing is I asked him, like, why'd you quit? Because he started like 20 years ago. And he said, like, the toxicity got to him. He used to have like 300 viewers and was one of the top streamers, and like the toxicity got to him. And then it was interesting. I was talking to him years and years ago, and he said, like, the cool thing about playing it in an arcade is that if you were an asshole, like no one would play with you. Like he used to play competitive fighting games, but like you play competitive fighting games like Street Fighter 2, like at an arcade. And if you're a dick, like no one's going to play with you. And so it's interesting because I think anonymity is like a big piece, right? There's no, or it's not necessarily even anonymity. It's like reinforcement or lack of reinforcement. There's no consequence for people like trolling you or flaming you. Just if I can share my own perspective. So I don't think that this problem is quite as insurmountable as everyone else does. And that's probably because I'm more naive. But when I play Dota, so I think behavior score that Destiny mentioned is like pretty interesting. So my behavior score is close to perfect, and it's not hard to get close to perfect behavior score. But the games that I'm in, like people are like genuinely nice. It's like you kind of get to play with people that, if they're having a bad game, they'll be encouraging. The other crazy thing is that if you keep your cool in those situations, it's been my experience that you can turn things around.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh
True.
my God.
Right?
Especially like if you're playing League, anything below like fucking Challenger, like people in Diamond 4 games will give up. Like it'll be like 4-2 and they'll be like, game is over. And it's like, are you serious right now?
You get invaded, Blitz pulls, gets a
Yeah,
kill, dude.
like one person,
Guys,
like,
I'm
game's over.
just in the fountain,
He's
guys.
trolling
See
the
you
rest of
later.
you. Like, are you serious? You think this is
I'm
LCS?
AFK.
What is wrong with you? Yeah. Something that is, and also to what you said about behavior, it is, okay, I'm sorry, I really hate League. It is more common in League to feel like shit, okay? After like winning a game, I think, than it is to feel good even. Because there are like so many people that just make the experience so horrible that you will have games where even if you win the game, it feels just like horrible that you got this guy on your team that was either trying to throw or just like a massive piece of shit and trolling the whole time. And it's like, oh my God.
And you just want to add him, and he has you back, and he said a bunch of dog shit, and you remove him. That's what I do.
I think that there's a good point in this that's like, okay, like, sure, we can like become a saint and like Mother Teresa and I like bless you, child. It's okay. We can win. Like, is it our obligation to do this every single time? Like, and as broadcasters, right? Do we like reform every single person that we come across and like expend this enormous amount of positive energy? Because it really does take a lot out of you. I did that for years where I was trying to reform people in League of Legends games. Believe me, that is a exhausting task. And in the same way, it is. I've met some of these broadcasters on the website where they'll have a troll come into chat, and this will just be a dude with just like a really bad opinion. Maybe he's racist or something like that. And they'll engage with them. And maybe through the process of like 30 to 40 transactions, which keep in mind is at the cost of everyone else on the show. right? They will transform this person. And Dr. K, when we talk, you were like, I want all the trolls, right? I'm going to transform every troll, right? But you're doing that at the behest of the rest of your audience, number one. And number two, it's like that expenditure of emotional energy on that one person is a very common thing in psychology because we're one-to-one sitting on a couch with somebody talking. But I wonder if it doesn't have, if there isn't some other tool or some other kind of application or thinking process we need to use at such a scale.
Yeah, but
I think Lily
What-
wanted to say
what-
something about getting pissed off at people in League games. Anyway, maybe not. I thought at one point you and Destiny spoke at the same time about people trolling and
Oh, when your own team trolls you.
yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I hate it when my own team trolls me in League too. Just wanted to.
Do you guys feel like you get trolled harder by your own team or by the opposite team?
It sucks more when it comes to your own team. That's the problem, because they're supposed to be trying to win with you. Like, if I could have 5 people on the enemy team doing personal insults about me and my son all day, that's whatever. But if I get one dude on my team that's just trying to throw the whole game, it's like, we're supposed to be on the same team, dude. What the fuck is wrong with you? It bothers me so much more. Ugh.
I think it's the feeling that they have. It's the small time window where they feel like weak and they're like, I will lose this game, but I can win this argument. Or does that make sense?
Yeah, it's brilliant, man.
Like I'm dead, I'm frustrated, and I clearly didn't win that battle, and I'm probably not gonna win the game. But that jungle Jarvan's playing like shit. Ooh, dude, I'm gonna get him, and that's my victory. And I think that's not a victory at all. But I still do it. But the other thing I was gonna say, what were you saying a second ago? And I was gonna chime in.
I was talking about how
Yeah.
we can address people individually, but at a scale. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, have you ever thought about this? I mean, of course you have, but what you're saying about the one-to-one conversation, have you ever thought that people that are negative or spread trash will be like, hey man, if I continue doing this and I act like this, maybe I'll be on the show as well, and I'll be sitting in that guy's couch, whatever, and I'll be able to talk to him.
Sure. Right. And I think, Lily, you wanted to say something else?
Oh man, I keep forgetting.
Okay, so
Can I say some stuff?
yeah, of course.
After you,
Anita.
Lily. Have you remembered, Lily?
No, I'll try to remember after you. Sorry. Go.
Okay. I kind of have a different kind of angle on all this because this is a kind of thing that my Tourette's comes into as well, because I play Overwatch and I feel a lot of like stereotype threat anyway when I play, because I kind of feel like I'm a representative for all women. Like when I don't do well, and a lot of the time, like I drink while I play games, or like I'll have a really bad day where I have tics and it will just throw off my aim, and I'm like, I'm just going to play socially because this is just not going to happen. And I still have fun, but then there's always someone going, this is why women shouldn't play computer games and all this sort of stuff. And I feel like I'm letting women down, and like if I don't get good at this or find a way to rein it in and do well, then I'm contributing to the problem. You know, I'm contributing to that barrier that stops like my friends that are female wanting to get into these games, because they hop in and no one cooperates with them. They hop in and people hear a woman do a call out, instead of like helping out or doing, you know, responding normally, they focus on the fact that she has, you know, different, you know, genitalia, and then that becomes the centralized aspect of like your team is just like constantly making you feel othered, and it's really annoying. And if you try to speak about it, then people use that against you too. It's an awkward conversation to have on Twitch, and it's really frustrating. And even sometimes it's subtle, like anyone else does a call out, everyone listens. If you do a call out, nobody listens, or people undermine you constantly. And one time you think it's just that dick, but then every time, and you start to think it's because you're different, and you can't point it out because people spam specific emotes that are designed to shame you for ever speaking up about anything that might be related to your sex. And the problem is that means that like 50% of the awesome gamers that could have become pros, that could have done really well, don't get invested in a game because it's just not the same to play it. Like if nobody cooperates with you, it's harder to train. If nobody cooperates with you, it's harder to make a team. It's harder to take it seriously, and it's less fun. And all of that stuff just piles up to mean that there are less girls in games, there are less female pros, and it is harder to break into, or at least it feels that way. And all of that level of toxicity is kind of like a level of bullying and a level of shaming and annoyance that is just so hard to even bring up, let alone challenge. And I just have no clue what to do about it.
A lot of my
You talk first. I was way behind.
A lot of my friends who are girls go through this problem where they feel if they are not good enough or something, they know that people are going to say, oh, it's because you're a girl gamer, it's because you got boosted, it's because you got carried. A lot of them have mentioned frustrations with that. So I noticed that some of my friends make specific accounts just to solo queue, just so they can prove themselves. And I think that's kind of a shame because like you shouldn't, I feel like, be shamed for wanting to do it with your friend or whatever, but they have this like extra urge to prove themselves. And yeah, that's...
And it's super funny because like 95% of chat will be worse than that player anyway. Like I think Pokemon and Hafu, I think Pokemon did, I know Hafu did, made solo queue accounts to get to Diamond 1 in League, and people will still roast the fuck out of him for it. It's like, dude, you're Silver 4. Why are you even talking? Like, yeah.
Well,
Silver? Dude, most of the chat is iron.
They see the accounts and then it's obviously solo queue, but they're like, oh, you just used this champion to climb, that doesn't count. Like they'll find
they'll invalidate you no matter
what. And I'm like, okay, what's the point?
Yeah. Oh yeah, even for Hafu for World of Warcraft, I've heard people say like she played like I don't remember the classes or whatever. Like, oh, some class that was OP at the time, so it doesn't count or whatever anyway. And it's like, oh well, why weren't you playing it at the time? You were like pro in that class? Like, oh god,
yeah. I feel something when people say oh, dude, Winston name, Winston brain. And it's like, hey man, when you log in, you play Overwatch, you can lock in Winston. When you play it, you're Silver. When I play it, I'm top 100. I don't know what you're on about, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
How do you guys deal with hate that comes from your community?
Ban them.
Yeah, they get the big ban, and if they're a sub, it feels even better. Ban them hard. Yeah.
I think I have a good point. I think it's your responsibility, if you want that responsibility, to target and try to understand: is this a meme? Is this a meme? Is this a joke? Is this banter? Or is this toxic? And is this going in a negative way that will lead to further problems, right? And once you can like weed out people that are being vicious and the people that are trying to have fun, or they're trying to like poke fun with good intentions, I think you can have like a good medium, and you can like progress further into like moderation and bantering with your own community. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Like, how do you guys measure between criticism, genuine criticism that should be taken on board, and abuse? Because like I worry that if I shut down everyone who has an angry voice or wants me to do better, that not all of them are wrong, and that once people become narcissistic, I'm personally afraid of becoming narcissistic because of Twitch, because there's so much positive reinforcement, there's so many people willing to pat you on the back regardless of how you behave. There's a group of people that will relate to you and congratulate that behavior, and so it's an easy place to end up in an echo chamber if you just ban anyone who disagrees with you. So I fear being too ban heavy, because I want other people with other perspectives around me, and I want people that expect better of me and will say things, speak up if I'm out of line, because I'm still growing as a human. I don't do things perfectly, and I welcome the prompting to do better. And I fear that it's hard to do that and balance like that thin line between like, no, this is bullshit and this is bullying, and this is something I should take on board.
I think because we're exposed to thousands of people, right? And because there's such a thin line, I feel like for me personally, over time, that's why I've become very just ban ready, because a lot of people will say they'll say it's criticism, but then they'll say my voice is cancer, and then I'll ban them and they'll tell me I can't take criticism. Like the more you get things like that, the more, I guess, again, go back to the jaded part, where if I expend that emotional energy to try to reason with every single one of these, and I used to do that a lot more, I get so worn out and so tired of it that I do understand the concern of it being an echo chamber, but at the same time, I don't want to be subjected to all those comments like constantly and expend that effort.
So
And
Something that
it's
okay.
tiring for me.
I think that as long as you're worried about that, you won't. Awareness is really important. So it's like if it's like, okay, narcissists don't know that they're narcissists, right? So if you're saying constantly, okay, well, I need to be open to criticism, right? That can't be a gateway to enable an enormous amount of hate in your life. And another thing that I wanted to point out is I think that this is something I've thought so much about. Man, like about a year ago when I started going serious on the platform again after I came back in, I was so stressed out from hateful comments. And I would ask what I did was I realized eventually that there's a lot of personal responsibility on me as a creator for the type of content I consume. I learned this because when I was running an esports team, a lot of my players, the first thing they would do after a match is they would go on Reddit, our League of Legends, and they would go see what people are saying about their match. And if they threw the game or they had a bad game or whatever, there would be hundreds and hundreds of negative comments about how they played. And this would be a discernible decrease in their practice for days later. They would feel terrible. A lot of times we'd have to have sessions and talk with them. And so what we did was we started to try to change the behaviors of actually consuming that content. And I can say like really confidently at this point, I've been able to reduce a lot of that, opening that gateway to that hate. I've been able to reduce that pretty much just to Twitch chat. And even that is minimal because of the positive reinforcement I mentioned before. I don't read Reddit. I don't read Twitter at all. I don't read any kind of Instagram comments or anything. I actually just, this behavior is actually possible to learn. And it's an enormous increase to your mental health if you don't do these things. It sounds really difficult, but you can do it. And I think there's some personal responsibility by us as creators to do it.
Something that so there's like two parts to this. One thing that I do with certain types of comments in chat, if it seems trolly, is I am very aggressive when it comes to banning people, but I'm also very aggressive when it comes to unbanning people. If people are typing like really dumb shit in chat, I will ban you very quickly for it, and I'm well known in my community for that. But if you're somebody that like genuinely wants to make an effort to contribute positively, it's really easy to get a hold of me to get unbanned. Like if you basically the way that I view it is like if you're going to go through the effort of emailing me and saying like, hey, like sorry I made this comment, can you unban me? Like I'll probably unban you. Like it's fine. Now if I recognize your name and you do this like 2 or 3 or 4 times, obviously you're going to stay banned. But I think that like just like you weed out like a lot of trash immediately if you just ban people, because sometimes, and everybody in here knows it, depending on what you're doing, sometimes there are people that just come into chat because they want to make a shit comment, and that's the only reason they're there. And it's very easy to just like ban these people and never have to deal with them again. They're not going to email you. They're not going to ask for it. They're literally just there to start shit. When it comes to like how do you figure out how to deal with criticism, obviously, so because I do political stuff, it's something that I think about a lot because I don't want to get stuck in like an echo chamber or not be evolving my political ideas or whatnot. I feel like when people are giving you criticism, one thing that you can look at is like the tone of the criticism, and that can be like a pretty big indicator as to the motivation of the person giving you the criticism. You know, if somebody sends me an email and they're like, hey, you know, that take that you had about X political issue, like I really think you're missing this or that or blah blah blah. Like this is like criticism that's good. Like you can take it, you can kind of digest it, you can see if there's anything legitimate there. If you've got people that are spamming you like, dude, you're so fucking stupid. Like how dumb you were to think blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, this isn't legitimate criticism. I'm not being narcissistic by just banning a person for saying this because it's not like he's giving me real feedback. He's just somebody that's shitting on me. And then a final thing, this is really hard to do, and I would probably recommend it against it. I would agree with Devin that in general it's bad to do this, but if you can handle reading comments made about you on like Twitter, Reddit, YouTube comments, 4chan, I find that if you see the same type of insult popping up over and over and over and over again, as horrible as it is, there might be like some nugget of truth there. If some perception exists about you, that's good to like dig into. Like, well, everybody makes the same type of comment about how I'm a bully or I'm a jerk or whatever. Maybe it's like good to take a minute to try to understand why that perception exists. It might be because there are other creators that are maligning you or being mean towards you. It might be, you know, total bullshit or whatever, but I think it's good to be aware of the perceptions of you out there just so that you know that people think a certain thing about you and then understand why they do.
But what if the comment is something that's not true? For example, I constantly get called fake Tourette's constantly. And it's something that is changing, especially on Reddit, because I've been here for so long and I've had to explain so much about Tourette's that a lot of people are a lot more aware of how it works now and that you can't really stereotype it anymore. But at the same time, you know, you can't reach everyone in the world, and constantly I'm getting hate and aggro and constantly called fake. And what it cornered me into doing for like the first half of like my time on YouTube especially was just spend loads of time making videos explaining myself instead of making content that I genuinely enjoyed. But I still find it really important to read and understand, because it made me aware that people need to understand this a little bit better. And I kind of forced myself to look at all this stuff, because sometimes it inspires me to actually talk in a way that people might find relatable, or to hone in on stuff that people don't have the answers to. So I do. I look at how people are receiving my content, and I look for stuff, little nudges, and to do better or to indulge people's curiosity. But it's wearing, like it's really, really wearing, and it's something that I've had my whole life. So I kind of thought, I'm used to it. I'm fine. But like every now and again, I kind of feel like it's not a battle won, it's a battle fought every day, and I don't always win. And you can't always escape it either, because people will spam every means of communication with threads about you and stuff like that. I mean, loads of people apologize to me for the way that they spoke about me somewhere I didn't even know existed and stuff. And so I kind of feel like I'm constantly having my attention slapped back towards it, even when I decide I need to pull away for a while. It's just really difficult.
I think there's.
I think
I'm
Felix
sorry.
has had his hand up for like
Oh,
last 5 comments.
Oh yeah. I just want to lose track of my whole thing. There's a lot. There's been a lot of good points, and I want to chime in on almost all of them. Like the one from Lily. See some of these comments that she's talking about, like people saying, "Oh, her voice is cancer" or something. This is something that she can't change, that she can't do whatever about, right? So some of these comments can be classified with like validity. Like, is this can this comment help? Can this comment do something? No. Okay, done. Also, in my chat, I have a lot of people, when I do something bad, they'll say "so bad, lol," "trash, lol." Okay, that's fine. And also Forsen has this a lot too. And over time, over the years, I recognize in chat that most people that say that will also say, "Wow, insane move, Pog," whenever I do something good, right? And they just manifest. They're like bantery, like disappointment when I do poorly. Like I'm he's in Gemini now. His name is Elite Beast. That's one of my big like two-faced coin person, where he's like very Pog when it's something good, and very so bad lol when it's something bad, right?
So there's just super black and white.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that when there's something so bad lol, it's bad. But saying so bad lol can be bad if somebody literally only says that all the time, only partakes in negative instances. That person, I think, has no value in the community, because if he only engages in, even if it's like not even one positive instance out of 100, then there's no value there, right? Because it's not even polarizing. It's not even there's no variety. It's literally just only negative. Then why even bother having him, right? I always say it's like 1 out of 100. Can you type one positive thing out of 100 in your day? Are you even allowed to do that? And if you can do that, I don't have that much of a problem having you around, right? If you say Pog one time out of 100, dude, we're good. And also, what she said, that's Anita. I can't point properly. She said another thing about her Tourette's. I actually can relate this. Like there came a point where like people are like, "Oh, dude, is this fake accent? Oh, he said that wrong poorly. He said that word poorly. Prove to me that that you don't know that word." And if you spend your entire day saying, "Look, because of this document, look, it says that I come from here and I speak this language," and now the content sucks, because now I spend my time like explaining something that it's just breaking the fourth wall for no reason, right? It's like a waste of energy. And it's like now it just kind of sucks. Go ahead.
Go for it, Lily.
Oh, I feel like it's tiring to trying to constantly defend yourself, constantly trying to justify yourself against these comments that will essentially never stop. So after a certain point,
That's why
I was just gonna say I was kind of curious, because like some people have now mentioned like a couple of the kind of criticism or hate that they face. I was curious, like for let's say like Destiny and Devin, What kind of hate have you guys faced from your community?
I mean,
I've had people say I have a
Yeah.
secret daughter. I've had people say that I'm a pedophile. I've
Yeah,
had people
Destiny's
say
like-
that I left my kid to go fuck women on the West Coast. I've had people say that I've everything. But that's like the nature of like political content. I find that when you or sorry, go ahead. What?
What is the nature of political content with
Crazy people.
How does that relate
Yeah,
to like
some of the
anything?
most
It draws the most mentally deranged people on the
Some of the
internet.
most
I've had the
intense,
FBI
yeah.
visit me
Mhm.
3 times over different
Holy
random
shit.
like fake tips.
I
There's, like,
put
all sorts of
Destiny
things.
in like the top
Yeah.
1% of people that have been harassed on Twitch. Like it's nuts. Yeah.
This is true.
And that's because
and-
you do political commentary?
Yeah,
The
it's a
nature of the
whole
kind of thing he
different game.
covers.
He's
Yeah.
very controversial.
Yeah.
And so when
I think
that
Sorry,
just
go ahead.
blows my mind.
yeah.
Yeah. One thing that, or it's Devin kept trying to talk. Sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead. Dr. K was rudely cutting him off over and over again. Go ahead.
Hey, it's fine. I talk too much anyway. I don't want to like specify it's actually part of my discipline that I don't want to specify the things
Sure.
that people say because I actually think it advocates it. Like I'm in a really draconian point in my life where I truly believe there is little to no benefit to consuming content made about you, to reading Reddit, to reading I've shut down my Twitter DMs, shut down Discord. Like Anita says, like you find another method of communication that people are trying to get to you, shut it down, right? Like I'm very draconian about the kind of things that I allow into my mind because I know that once that negativity is there, it lives there and I have to process it. So to the extent that I can actually eliminate that as a content creator and as a person, I can focus on the things that are more valuable to me. And I think, okay, I can read a Reddit thread and maybe I read 500 comments about something that has absolutely nothing that could improve me, or I could spend that same time like going through my VOD and figuring out what points that I thought that I could improve on and improving the kind of content that I want to create. Like there's always a better use of time than consuming content made about you as a creator.
Does
Interesting.
everyone here do that? Does everyone else completely ignore all commentary?
I don't know a
content?
single other broadcaster that does this besides me.
I can't ignore. I
Yeah.
just like I read everything just because it's my personality. I like knowing, even if it hurts. I like knowing and like what I can do about it. That's probably healthier Devin's way, maybe.
Wait, you
assuming.
don't read into what?
Pardon?
Do you watch or read any content of yours?
I watch my own VODs, yeah.
But no, do you watch
I
what
didn't know
other
that.
people make of you? Like, do you watch anything like when people make reports about your content
hit
or like
pieces.
threads about you or like things on live stream fails or like news
Um,
reports, anything like that?
When it comes down to other creators, this will be a hot take. I feel like most of the times the people engage with me in a negative way, or other creators that like do criticism disguised in they do like trash disguised in criticism, whatever. A lot of times they're dealing with their own insecurities and their own lack of success and their own like disappointing failures in ways that are like, oh, this guy sucks or whatever. When you're rolling, when you're like popping off, you don't have time to even think. You don't have brain space to think about saying some stupid trash about somebody else. You just don't have to. Like I feel like when you're fulfilled, when you're doing great things, you have no space to start shitting on other people or like criticizing them or something, right? So I understand that the criticism that others will have, it can impact me because it doesn't come from a place of reason.
Something that when it comes to looking at people that make specific content about you that is full of lies, this is something that I've got a lot of firsthand experience with. Something that I noticed because I read a lot of content about me. So I'll read like 4chan threads or LSF threads or YouTube comment sections of other people that make videos about me. One thing I notice is that if there's a common attack against you that's false, if you take the time, sometimes, I don't always advocate this, but if you take the time to respond in like an organized manner against it, even though not everybody that attacks you will see your response, oftentimes your fans will carry that response into other comment sections. I noticed that sometimes if somebody makes like a video about me that has like a whole bunch of like crazy like false claims, if I make like a response video and I go like, hey, this was said about me, this isn't true, this isn't true, this isn't true, even though a lot of people won't watch it, if I look at other people making similar attacks against me in the future, I will see that my fans will be fighting in that comment section, linking back to my video or referencing it, which is like a way that you can kind of carry forward, some things to, if something's being said against you that's like obviously false or obviously dumb. But this gets into like way more complicated forms of like community interaction and whatnot. But yeah,
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Even sometimes when I comment on my own Reddit and my comment gets like 7 upvotes, whatever, you can't win this current battle, but you'll win the next one, right?
Interesting.
So you have to stop thinking about this hate, this drama, whatever. This one thread or this instance of it, I won't win it. It's already lost. I could make a video with 20 million views or something. It won't matter. Like that will still be there. But the next time that somebody tries to attack whatever, what the investment that I put in as a defense that is valid, my people will carry it over, and they will make sure that the fire doesn't feed and doesn't grow bigger.
So I recently learned, it's kind of silly, but I was interviewing someone and they like mentioned some person's name and I didn't realize they were talking about a person. I thought it was like a Twitch term, like Big Schnoz or something. And they were telling me, no, this is like a person who makes like hate videos basically, or like drama kind of videos. And so, I kind of like learned that they're like people who apparently like dedicated will like make, I forget what the name is, but they'll like dedicate time to like making videos that trash other creators.
Of course.
And so
xQc is on another level with that, right? Because you can if I make a video trashing xQc, it gets me more views and grows my channel. It's a very easy thing to do.
Right. So it's like it's like they just criticize big streamers and that's like almost their business model, right?
Yeah, 100%.
You
I have
can't
so much to say about that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Anita.
Let's say I want to slip one thing. I feel like no, go. I need to go.
Go, Anita.
Okay, so people, this amazes me about the gaming community is that there is so much hate for Twitch thoughts, right? Everyone thinks that women are manipulative by having breasts, right? And that's somehow a plot to rob virgins, right? But nobody, like these people will be really great content creators, but because they've been dismissed and categorized as that, the instant someone hops into their chat, they're like, it's a thought, and they leave. They don't give them a chance and they stereotype them, and these people are just tarnished as manipulators, right? But there are literally millions of gamers watching and subscribing channels that are just dedicated to complaining about other content creators instead of making content of their own. And they manipulate all these people into a hate wave because they snicker from behind that hate wave all of that hard work and doxing and harassment that these people do for free on behalf of someone who cashes in behind them going, not having to do anything brave, not having to face any criticism, getting millions of pats on the back. And nobody clocks this or sees that it's manipulation and that it's a way of misdirecting hate for profit and that it's actually really scummy. And like, why are these people? Why is there no word for these people? Like, I don't know.
I was talking to someone. Someone said that they're hate farmers. That's the word they used. I thought it was a great term.
They pan into trash, yeah.
But sorry, Lily, go ahead.
No.
I just wanted to say, so like, I think the interesting thing here though is when you guys say that there are like millions of people, and I like saw a couple of these videos and just looked at the view count, it makes me think a bit back to what Devin was saying earlier about a vocal minority. And the interesting thing is if you look at some of these like hate videos that have, like millions of views, that's not a vocal minority. That's actually like
Wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
Relative to YouTube, it is. So the thing that we don't consider with YouTube and Twitch is YouTube is for every one person on Twitch, there's 100 on YouTube. So for example, there's about 16.5 to 16.8 daily million active users on Twitch. There's 200 million daily active users on YouTube on gaming alone. So the relative to the amount of here's the problem. To the individual content creators that are making those videos, right? 1.5 million, 2 million views is a lot and enough for them to monetize that content. Thus, they do it because it's a very low-hanging fruit to make a trash video about Lily or Pokey or xQc or whatever and get a bunch of free views. But relative to the actual platform, those are tiny creators. They're not like succeeding at any like meaningful level.
One thing that I think is like a very funny internet phenomenon. I don't know if any other creator has ever had this happen, but sometimes you'll be streaming for a day and you'll see like a kind of like a unique insult, and you'll see it like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times. You're like, oh, somebody must have either made a video about me or a post somewhere. Yeah, you're like, okay, and then you have to go and find it, and then you watch it like, oh, okay, this is why everybody is calling me like midget cuck today, like because this guy literally made a video, and now all of his fans, everyone here, whether you might not see the post on the air, but if you've ever had a day where you're just getting a bunch of like, that's kind of unique insult. I don't know why 3 people have called me that. It's because somebody somewhere else made a video or a post calling you that, and those people are coming from there to do it. Yeah, it's a really, really funny phenomenon.
I should clarify real quick. Like, sorry, I think I'm just like real caveat there because I think I'm a little bit wrong. Just because the stats are like make it seem like macro like that, what Destiny just said made me realize that like it's personal to you, right? So if that's like 1 million people that watched a video particular to like the hate about like you as a creator, it's like a massive influx of people into your community that day that come in and spam your Twitch chat, right? Like your day's over. Like like you're like so it does make a big difference. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I actually had that with the recent YouTube channel or whatever. Every day that I had a new video pop up of one of these guys who would like criticize me or whatever, like I could see chat complete like less subs ratio, a lot of names with no badges, so like no prime badge, no whatever, like just just almost like a fresh account. And there's a crazy amount of them, and most of them were saying like the same thing, right? And that happens pretty often, way more than I think I think we can figure it out. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a little bit curious because, like, I hear Devin, your point is well taken that the scale of YouTube versus Twitch is an important differentiator. But what I'm also hearing is that, like, maybe what's actually happened is that the reason that these people are vocal minorities in our communities is because y'all have done a good job of cultivating positive communities, but all the people that over time have been banned and stopped showing up in your content and your channels, like there's actually a large number of people who like go to other places, right? But it just because they're the vocal minority in your community, and this kind of goes back to like building an echo chamber. Like I'm a little bit curious now about like whether the people who hate Twitch thoughts, finally a term I'm familiar with and understand and can use, it is actually quite large, right? Like, what do you guys think about that?
Not relative to all of Twitch, I don't think so. We're talking about like, it's hard because when we talk about like a minority of a minority of a minority of a thing, it really depends on like who you're interacting with. God, all the examples I want to go through are like political. I'm sorry, but that's just where my brain goes. Like, for instance, like,
I'll help you.
Like the KKK is a very small percentage of anything, of Republicans, of white people, anything in the United States. But if you live in like a town where there's like a large presence of them, it's not going to feel like a minority, right? If you are a 500 average viewer streamer, which is very large on Twitch, if you're a 500 average viewer streamer and somebody that has like 1 million subs on YouTube makes a hit video about you, even if that's a minority of people on YouTube, and even if they come over to Twitch and it's a minority of people on Twitch, even 100 negative commenters, even on a 10,000 concurrent viewer channel, 100 negative commenters will be overwhelming. If you're smaller than that, dude, you will be completely overwhelmed with the amount of hate that you'll get. It takes a surprisingly very few amount of people to totally change the way a chat goes. If you're ever curious, if you know like the really spammy chats, I do this sometimes, it's really funny. If you go into a chat and there's a ton of spam, if you can mute 10 people or less and cut out like literally 85% of the spam. It's insane.
Like 80-20 rule when it comes to Twitch chat
80-20 and everything, man.
Crazy, yeah. Half the time they're mods on some of these channels. I don't know why, but like, yeah, it's insane. Yeah.
So I'm hearing 2 almost conflicting points. One is that what I'm hearing you guys say is, generally speaking, engaging with trolls is a bad idea and you should just nip it in the bud. And there's a thought that I had, which was like, for the people who create hateful content, responding to them, doesn't that just get them to create more hateful content? But what I'm hearing, so that's what I thought. So I was under the assumption that the right thing to do if someone makes a hate video about you is just to ignore it, because that's a battle that you can't ever convince anyone, because no one ever wants to be convinced. And at the same time, what I'm hearing you guys say is actually, if you do respond to it, people from your own community will then spread that response. So even though it looks like no one is paying attention, that it can actually create change over time and potentially a cultural shift.
Okay. Yeah. In my opinion, I think it's 2 different types of criticism and content. I can't prove to you that I'm funny, but I can prove to you that I'm good at the game. So basically, if the guy says that my content sucks, I can't go out and say, hey man, my content is good. That will never go through, right? But if the person says, hey man, this guy is bad at the game, you can say, hey man, look at my rank. So there are things that you can prove them, or there are points you can count that they can argue. If somebody has false claims and uses false points in his video or whatever, I think it's okay to address it. I don't think you should ignore it. Something is spreading false information, even though it's getting views or whatever. If you just dispel it, you'll come out on top. So what I like to do is I'll take the points and I'll dismantle them, and I'll be like, okay, this is wrong, and this is why, and whatever is evil and whatever criticism is not rooted in whatever they're saying that isn't like actual criticism, you can easily like ignore it or dispel it. Like if somebody says, oh, that creator is this is that, and he's ugly. Okay, well I'm not gonna address the ugly because that's pointless. But the rest for sure.
There's a lot of things that ignoring will put away. I think xQc is 100% right on this. Where if it's some ad hominem or just some insults or whatever, just ignoring that because you can't address it. But Destiny's point to there is room for professional, well put out responses at times to what other people could perceive as legitimate criticisms. For example, like if somebody's calling you a fraud or somebody is telling you that you have done something that you haven't done, you have a secret daughter or something, right? There's room for that to happen. And I go to an example that when I was speaking to Alinity about this, and I know Dr. K, you've spoken to Alinity as well. She when she had the whole incident with everything happening and people started to really hate on her, she was advised to stay quiet and to not respond. And she says that she regrets that because if she had made a response video at that time and said, look, these are like, here's the people coming in and saying that like I'm a good cat owner, here's all this stuff, then she thinks that she could have changed that narrative. So it is a bit of a contradiction, but a lot of the time ignoring things is the answer, particularly at ad hominems. But there's a time and a place for like a professional response.
Yeah, I think so. There's two dimensions that I kind of like view this through. So, and this is just agreeing with everything that's been said so far. It depends on who levies the criticism. Is this like an individual idiot in chat, or is this like another content creator? An individual idiot in chat doesn't deserve a response all the time, but another content creator kind of demands a response. If somebody's making something about you and it's going out to a lot of people, you kind of have to say something. Because sometimes your fans are looking to you to respond as well, even if they don't verbalize that. If a whole bunch of people are making a lot of claims at you and you're kind of silent, like your fans do notice that, even if they don't verbalize that thing. So you have to be mindful of like, is it an individual troll or is it a large content creator? And then, as Devin said, it depends on the type of criticism too. If you're going to make 20 videos about how I'm a short midget that makes boring content, there's not much to say. But if you're going to start making a whole bunch of like very formalized but demonstrably untrue claims about me, well, then that is something that like I think it's worth having at least one formal response to. That if somebody comes and asks you about it, you go, oh, I already made a video about that. Like, that's totally fake. So that the type of criticism and who does it is like the first, like, that's like one dimension I view it. Another dimension is like, what is your engagement with other streamers? If you're somebody that's like incredibly isolated and you don't engage with like other types of people, sometimes there's not as much of like a drive to respond to them, Like if a bunch of people in the knitting community started to make videos about how I'm a horrible person, like I'm never going to engage with that community. Maybe I don't really care as much. Maybe I kind of ignore that. If you're a streamer and you just kind of like do your own thing or whatever, there's not as much of an imperative as if you're somebody that like collaborates a lot more with other streamers or reaches into other communities to do joint content. If that's something where you are working with a lot of other streamers and you have those relationships, then maybe there's also like a bit more of a drive to kind of like set the record straight, because other communities are going to start to hate you based on stuff they see. And if you don't have a response, it just kind of looks like you're admitting guilt a little bit.
Interesting. It's interesting because I find myself. So first of all, I want to just pause for a second and say thank you guys very much. I'm not trying to necessarily wrap up or anything. I just want to, I just really appreciate everyone's perspective so much. I think it's been really interesting to have different kinds of people, right? So like xQc talks about you can't be proven wrong in terms of skill, is a legend to scrub from Dota. There's no way that I can prove my skill at anything. And so, to hear just different experiences of what you guys face, I think, Anita, especially, you've asked a lot of like really, really interesting questions and your perspective has been actually a little bit different in terms of trying to really like understand where people are coming from and educate. I get the sense that all of you have also dealt with different forms and types of toxicity, like some of which are, there's clear evidence of, like Lily's voice is her voice. And then some people just make up random shit, like apparently Destiny. I still am just so confused by this. You have a secret daughter? Like, what does that even, like, anyway, I just get really confused by a lot of the stuff that I hear. So thank you guys so much for bringing a lot of different perspectives. I guess I've got a couple of kind of directions, and I just want to sort of see where you guys want to go. One is that we talked a lot about toxicity and managing toxicity. So we could talk a little bit about that. I have a few thoughts about that. I have a couple of experiences with that. Another thing that I'm kind of curious about, just personally, because I've been exploring this more, especially with the Me Too movement. I've also started doing some work with esports orgs in terms of like helping them hopefully do better. And that's been really, really fascinating, enlightening. I've learned a lot of cool things about, I think I better understand why your teammates flame you way harder than you flame the other team. So it's been really interesting from kind of like a learning perspective. The other thing that I'm kind of curious about is like, someone mentioned like Anita was kind of talking about the experience of being a female gamer. We've had a couple of groups of women kind of come on our streams recently that have been pretty enlightening in terms of them sharing their experience of what it's like to be a gamer. Or more recently, we had one about like women and their interactions with men in terms of like non-gaming interactions. So like when you play a game with someone and they add you as a friend, like how long it takes for them to fall in love with you and shit like that, because that kind of stuff happens. It's been interesting. So one broader question that I've just been having recently that I've never really heard anyone talk too much about, or I mean, we've talked about it here, is like why there aren't female pro gamers. Yeah. Maybe.
What was that a question?
Yeah. I mean, so these are the different directions, right? So we could talk a little bit about toxicity and managing toxicity. We could talk a little bit about, all kinds of like random stuff in terms of like, why your teammates flame you harder. But I was kind of thinking managing toxicity. And then personally, I'm kind of curious about like why there aren't female pro gamers.
I have so much to say about those.
Yeah, okay, so it sounds like we have a winner.
I have a story, but Anita, go first.
Well, like I was saying about the female gamer thing, which I'll touch on first, is that how do you get enthusiastic and, get excited to wake up in the morning and play a game where you get treated differently than everybody else? You don't. So breaking in is the first barrier. Like you have to get as many women invested in playing competitively as men. And if you throw up loads of obstacles that make it harder to cooperate, harder to find a team of people who will, group up with you consistently, and then not fall in love with you, it just becomes an exhausting set of extra hurdles preventing you, like more hurdles on top of, people are toxic generally. Like a lot of people write off sexist toxicity as like, you will get toxicity no matter who you are. And for you, it'll be because you're a woman. And for me, it'll be because I'm slightly heavy. And for that person, it'll be because they're skinny. And for that person, it'll be because they're gay. But you will get toxicity. It's just your brand of toxicity. And I'm saying, no, you get extra toxicity. You get the toxicity you would as a gamer, and you get the toxicity you get as a woman as well. So you have two hurdles, whereas a bunch of dudes have one. And by comparison. And that means that it's harder to get women invested in the game in the first place. I don't think it's a level of capability. I think it's about having just an extra filter reducing the numbers. And if you can create an environment where, because the thing is, no one's going to listen to us, because the kind of people that are toxic towards women don't listen to women. It has to come from other dudes. And I'm not saying, dudes, could you please white knight for us? I'm saying, like, if we're in a chat full of, like, 5 dudes, and one is being an absolute dick, and the other 4 are just listening and still cooperating with him and ignoring the fact that it's happening, it validates his behavior and tells you that they think he's in the right. And then it doesn't become like a troll problem. It becomes like a gamer culture problem where you're like, oh, I don't fit in here. Like, I'm not supposed to be here. That's normal for them. And so, like, the bystanders kind of set the standard in this situation. And I kind of think, like, a huge step forward there is getting dudes proud of actually standing up and going, you know what, this isn't the fucking 1960s, dude. You have to be a grown-up now. Like, we're not all gamer kids anymore. We're adults. We grew up. We're still gamers. And now you have to be a grown-up and not be all scared of girls and stuff. And that has to come from everyone in the room, not just the woman getting picked on.
Felix?
Going
Okay.
by sorry.
Oh, no, she goes first.
Just a little bystander effect. It seems that if you defend a girl, though, I think a lot of people are scared
Simp.
of being called simp. White Knight, their defense is completely invalidated by like, oh, you're just sticking up for her because she's not gonna sleep with you, bro. Like all that shit. So I think that discourages people from standing up to people who shit on girls.
Okay, my approach, I have a good approach to that because I wanted to say that earlier today in the other discussion, but I didn't. My approach when I've been matched with girls, a lot of times, for some reason, guys have this thing where like girls always have to prove that they're good enough. But then you'll play a game and a girl will do well or something, and people will whenever they do poorly. I mean, guys will like pile on them, and there's a way to like to counteract these weirdos that are being weird without being a simp or a white knight. You can dispel trash without jumping in front and stop this like some knight or savior, right? Like if somebody's like, oh dude, man, I don't know, like somebody saying something about you being a girl or something like that, right? And they're using it against you. And then they're like bot fragging, and he's still talking shit. You're like, hey man, crazy that you're bot fragging, losing to a girl or something like that. Like sometimes you can sort of use it against them, and a lot of times, I don't know, like there's a way to, dude. I'm losing train of thought. I'm sorry. Oh my god.
So Felix, it sounds like you're saying there's a way to not be a white knight and still not be a bystander.
Yeah, and I've done it multiple times on my stream. I think I've given really good examples of how you can like defend a woman without looking like a simp, and also I have a story about like female programmers if you guys want to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Okay, so maybe some of you guys are familiar with this. We had this female in No Watch scene. A lot of people are familiar with her, Geguri, right? And she went pro and she went into the league, and her path wasn't easy. It wasn't like one of those like easy cookie cutter path of like being good and just making it. Like she was getting better and really good, and every step of the way she was getting people who were saying that she was hacking, and people were making videos and streams of like Kristen saying, oh look, like she can't be that good. She's hacking here and there, and it was like literally like impossible, right? And even through the criticism, she kept playing. And she kept making it. And at some point, she literally deserved her spot to a league. And even when she got hired, people were saying she's only in because she's a woman. And people were saying now she's in because she's a good PR stunt, right? And even when she was performing, there was still something. And I thought it was kind of like a realization that the facts didn't matter anymore. Like people just almost like didn't care. Of how good she was. There's always something to prove, something that even if unprovable, like she can't access this level of status unless she proves it, even though that's unprovable, right? That she deserves a spot. But and it was really sad. But at the same time, I don't think people value, or like I think people underplay the impact that she had, because she was also an icon of somebody who did make it. Somebody who did rise above and stood with the head above water. I think that has a big impact on the whole culture.
I have a ton of thought about this from esports. Let's look at an analogy, okay? Because this has happened in history before. So in esports, we started a team of CS:GO players on CLG. We can't find any reason, biologically or genetically, why women would be worse than men in games. So for some reason, though, there are literally no women in pro gaming. So like xQc said, this story is so important to highlight like what actually happened here, because this has happened before in STEM programs at universities. It used to be that at STEM programs, there were no women in any kind of STEM program, especially math, right? Then at Yale, activists started trying to push for women to join STEM programs. And what happened was a woman actually did. They pushed into a program at Yale, and they went into a math program. And she recalls it being one of the worst experiences of her life. She was constantly being asked for the woman's point of view on math. She was being watched in class. People were asking her why she was there. And so she dropped out because she had, so why, right? So fast forward a few years, Yale introduces 5 women instead of 1. And now they succeed. The women have a support network. They are able to interact with the ecosystem better. They're able to talk amongst themselves. So this problem comes at a publisher level who's controlling the leagues, because we're not creating these ecosystems that allow women to be a part of the thing. If we just expect women to if one person to join an esports team with the way the culture is, like Anita says, the problem becomes insurmountable. There are so many hurdles and so many obstacles to have to overcome that there is no way that statistically a woman that's able to do it, it's like maybe this one girl in Overwatch does it and goes through everything, but the amount of hell she has to go through to get there and is still receiving because the system, the ecosystem itself doesn't support these women. Esports has that problem at a systemic level and nobody cares to fix it. We are not going to have women in gaming at an equal level with men until publishers actually do something about this and make the ecosystem more friendly to them.
Yeah, we're talking about this. We're actually so far down the road even for where these types of differentiations between like men and women or boys and girls begin. Although it's changed a lot over the past 20 years, especially. But like even like when you're looking to buy gifts for your children, you know, like, oh, I've got a boy, I'm gonna get him like video games because that's what he do. Oh, I've got a girl, I'm gonna get him like Barbie dolls or toys or whatever because that's what they do. Like this type of like buying different things for different people, like happens at a very early age, such that by the time you're, you know, guys that are in pro gaming, they don't start like at 18 years old. You know, they've probably been playing games since they're like 5 or 6. You know, there aren't any pro players that, you know, picked it up, you know, oh, League is the first game I ever played at 17 and now I'm going to the LCS. It's like, oh no, when I was 4 years old I played Ocarina of Time, or when I was like 6 years old I got a whatever. Yeah, I think that this type of like how we treat men and women that play games starts at a really early age too. So it's really hard to fix when you're at the very end of that. It's like, well, how do I get more women in pro gaming? Well, like the answer is like, you know, buy 4-year-old girls Switches. Like that, it's a really, really long, drawn-out problem that happens throughout like the entire course of a person's life.
One more thing. I feel like culturally also in esports and gaming, this is also something in pro gaming and in leagues or whatever, it's not 100% a meritocracy. Like a lot of people hold spots into leagues in League of Legends, I'm sure in CS, in Overwatch, where they're holding a spot and they're not worth that spot because they're not good enough, right? So it's not meritocracy because they have like brand value or because they have like certain contracts. There's millions of reasons why, and it's not like one or two. There's like dozens of people that shouldn't be there because they're not good enough, right? But that's fine because not a lot of people are going to call them out or say something. But because there's so little women in pro gaming, once one makes it, they're to such a high level of scrutiny. It makes it like impossible. Now people, oh, there's one woman. Now we're gonna investigate. Does she deserve it? Is she good enough? Let's find out. No, she's not good enough. And all of a sudden, holy shit, it's a pure meritocracy. Like they have to deserve it. No, not all these 40 players don't deserve it. That one player woman, she has to deserve it. It has to be pure meritocracy, like out of the blue. And I think that's crazy. That's like insane.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's like if we were to add like the filter of like, well, yeah, women have to deal with toxicity, and then toxicity for being a woman. You also have to be the specific rare character type that will keep doing something that's meant to be recreational and it be exhausting, but still keep turning up. So like you have to be like the rare tiny percentage of women that will play a game not just for fun, because it's not always fun. In fact, it's exhausting. People giving you shit all the time and not cooperating with you and making remarks all the time and everyone's scrutinizing you. You have to be the kind of person who keeps coming back and taking that abuse and continuing. And that's going to be really rare, especially for games, because the reason we play them is for fun. And all of those things make it not fun. So, of course, it's going to exponentially reduce the female participation. Now we've identified 3 hurdles, and very few people, regardless of who they are, even if they're a dude, would have jumped one of these just to play a specific game when there's so much else you can do with your time.
Yeah, this is fascinating. I find myself kind of defaulting to kind of my general solution, which is I would love to find a group of prospective female gamers and just support them, like psychological. Like I'm wondering because what you guys are saying. So on the one hand, Destiny, I think brings up a good point that if we look at pro gamers, they start super young. So like maybe that's one of the differentiating factors. I generally tend to agree with I think the general sentiment here, which is that I don't see a biological neuroscientific reason why pro gaming shouldn't be 50-50. I don't see one. I'm not saying that one doesn't exist because
Yeah.
it hasn't been well studied. But I do think, yeah.
Just on that real quick, because I know a lot of people point that out, something that's really fascinating. It's like, well, how could it just be culture that caused, like, there's not a single woman in so many different esports, blah, blah, blah. Something that's really interesting is like, if you look at very talented guitar players, like look at like rock bands, it's like 99.99999% of these people are men in like rock bands that are like these virtuoso guitar players. And it's like, okay, well, maybe there is something there that like men are just more dexterous with their fingers or the coordination of like the male hunter brain or whatever. But if you hop over into the classical world and you look at incredibly talented piano players or violin players, well, now all of a sudden you have a ton of women that are incredibly talented at their instruments. Oh my God. Like there are some female piano players that are mind blowing. And it's like, okay, well, now it kind of looks like maybe there's like, is there a reason why women's fingers are faster on a violin board rather than like on a guitar fretboard? Well, that doesn't really make sense, right? They're like, you can tell that like culturally, we are very much driven towards participating in certain activities.
Yeah, so I mean, I think if you make the argument that like the reason that you have to be a pro gamer, it doesn't matter about gender, that you have to start at a young age, and the way that we socialize our kids, like I know at least I've tried to get my kids to play video games, they just don't seem to be very interested.
Sure.
And to my great sorrow, but what I'm hearing from you guys is that a lot of the pressures are psychological, and so oddly enough, that gives me hope because I've helped people who have been in difficult situations like succeed, especially when their primary barriers are psychological or stress oriented. And it makes me wonder, it gives me actually hope that if you give women the kind of support, just like Devin was saying, you take 5 people and you put them in together and then it's a different ballgame. So I just wonder if like we can actually do that sooner rather than later.
I think you have to exert. I'm sorry, Lily. Go ahead.
I think it's gonna be gradual. I think like what we mentioned in the beginning about the whole toxicity in gaming culture, and if certain events will affect it, like Steven said, it's a subtle shift every time. I feel like there has to be more of those. Like let's say there's like a female pro gamer who suddenly appears and influences like thousands of other girls to do the same. Little stuff like that I think would help. Go on, Devin.
I think if you want to fix this problem, you have to challenge the people that control the leagues to support initiatives that do so in order to create those ecosystems. They're ultimately in esports, publishers control everything. This doesn't get talked about a lot. Activision controls everything about OWL and CDL, and Riot controls everything about the LCS. Blizzard controls everything about their esports. These publishers are so prevalent that even if we were to start an initiative to have a tournament of all women, for example, we couldn't host it because League would have to give us permission to do that. So there has to be pressure exerted on these larger publishers to be able to exert any kind of change. And I don't see any of that happening.
I also want to echo something that I thought was really funny that xQc said earlier. I don't have as much involvement in the pro scenes these days, but I know that back in the day, what you said is 100% true. Where like, if a woman is in some place, all of a sudden she has to have like the technical abilities to be there. Otherwise, she's like a fraud and she doesn't deserve it. But people were like super quick to overlook like people that were picked up on certain teams just because they got a lot of viewers because they were entertaining. Like back in the StarCraft days, like your salary wasn't 100% correlated to like how good you were at the game, but it was more just like how entertaining are you as a streamer? Like how many viewers do you pull in? Like how many new eyes are you getting on your team? Yeah. So like this idea that like, well, if you're a woman and you're there, like you're only being picked up, you're not even that good at the game. It's like, well, there's a lot of guys that don't like hit that bar either, but for some reason we judge the two quite differently sometimes.
Yeah, Devin, I hear what you're saying. I still find myself just like ultimately I think you're more of a systems person than I am, just in terms of the way that our brains work. I tend to be highly individual focused, and I just find myself being incredibly curious. Like if I could run a support group for 8 women who were prospective pro gamers and who were really good, I'm just curious what would happen.
I think, like Lily said, that if you were able to elevate one of those people into a significant place and they had support for it, it could change the lives of thousands of women.
I don't even think it has to be the same esport. Like I think it's
I don't
just
either. Yeah,
you know.
I mean, So Intel had this initiative to sponsor us in CLG to create CLG Red, which was an all-female team of CS:GO players, and they competed at a professional level in CS:GO for years. I believe they still do. The team is still active, and it did an enormous amount of good. There's so many people that were inspired just by virtue of them existing and having a support network. And we would we got more flame and more negativity about that team than any other team that we had. Even by scale, right? Because we had LCS team that was way more prominent in terms of viewership, but still in terms of negative comments, that did it. And I think that when you create those kind of support networks and you say, look, like no matter what, we're going to back you, it's really important. And if you did something like that, it would. I am a more systematic person, but at some point you're also slamming your head against the wall because like talking to Riot Games about making like an all women's league is like
no,
so
but
astronomical.
Devin, I don't
what
know.
you're doing
I don't
is
know,
actually actionable.
I don't know why you were saying all women. Like an
Mhm.
all women, like I'm not talking about all women leagues or all women teams. Like that seems
Oh, sure. That's just an
bizarrely-
arbitrary example.
Yeah, I mean,
but
I think
it could
like,
just be.
I don't
anything.
understand. Like, I think it's incredibly artificial and sort of a legacy of physical sports to separate female and male esports. Like that sounds frankly idiotic to me. Like I don't see any reason why. Like I'm confused about why we don't. I mean, less so now because I think you guys have done a really good job explaining it. But like what I'm hearing from Anita and also Lily and xQc is that primarily what's holding women back is actually like the additional psychological hurdles in culture. And there's a part of me that says like I can help people deal with psychological hurdles in culture.
Yeah,
And
I was more just an arbitrary example. Like I'm championing you because I think what you're doing is actually actionable. Versus if you go to like Riot or someone like that, it's very difficult to.
And like there's a part of me that says like if you actually look at the truth of the matter, and I don't have a good reason to believe aside. I think the most compelling argument I've heard is from Destiny, which is just that like to be a pro gamer, you have to start really young, and like fewer women start really young and play as much as male gamers who go to a particular esport. And that too, there's also data that suggests that like this is true because it's very hard to jump esports, right? Like you can't go from being like a top FPS player to like a top MOBA player. So it suggests that there's something about the level of skill that you entrain from a very young age. And that's really the most compelling argument that I've heard. But if the problems are psychological, I'm just really curious what would happen if you take a group of female gamers and just like give them the psychological support to try to remove as much of the hurdles as what Anita and Lily describe and what xQc describes in terms of like hate and toxicity and flaming and all this kind of crap. And then I'm curious what would happen.
Something to back up kind of what I was saying before that was really interesting. I wish I had the link to this, but there was a study that shows it tracks the growth of women's representation in school in different fields like medicine or law, and then like computer science. And something that was really interesting was that all of these fields were tending upwards until I think it was the release of the Nintendo Entertainment System in the United States. You could follow like 18 years or whatever after that release, or like 10 years after the release, you could see that there started to become this big drop off of women that were getting computer science degrees. And one of the hypotheses to that is that when these video game machines started to come out, they were heavily marketed towards young boys. And what happened was if you got to college and you wanted to go into computer science, well, if you're a girl and you haven't been playing video games your whole life, now all of a sudden every other person in class that's a male or a guy, they've been like taking apart and playing with 386s or Ataris or Nintendos for like 10 years. They've already got a massive head start on you just because the culture kind of pushed them to playing towards video games. And you see this huge drop off of women participation in computer science that you don't see in any other of like the major STEM fields. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, so any kind of because we've been at this for a while, I think it's been an enjoyable discussion for me. I think any particular kind of take home points or things that you guys want to like last thoughts that y'all want to share about creating positive. I know we sort of got off on the toxicity and kind of thinking about female gamers, but any kind of last thoughts that you want to share about, you know, how do you create a good community? How do you maintain a good community? How do you think about toxicity within your community? I know open-ended questions at the end.
I would say the biggest way that I cope with toxicity is I take it as an opportunity every single time. So I'm like, okay, I'm in a situation now. What do I do with this? And when a particular streamer came at me and said that I should be banned for the platform, and loads of people joined in with her, and I got a wave of hate everywhere, and it just sparked off this thing where clips of me were taken out of context, unexplained, and everyone's begging Twitch to cancel me. I took it as an opportunity. So I educated people about Tourette syndrome, and loads of people were suddenly paying attention to me, and I was like, yes, I have Tourette's. This is what Tourette's is. And it transformed huge communities because they'd never understood what it meant. And I was like, yay, I did a thing. And even if I get banned, it was worth it because millions of people understand us better, and that makes the world a safer place for people like us. And when people have come at me about anything, I've been like, fine, I've got some attention. It's not necessarily positive attention, but I can still do something good with it, even if it's just make a response video. Yay, that'll get me some extra money on YouTube. At least there's a positive. And the best slap in the face for people who are trying to tear you down is for it to accidentally make you money. So like, I feel particularly smug about like the revenue on response YouTube videos, because when people are giving me grief and I profit from it, I'm just like, that kind of backfired for you. So yeah, see every little bit, especially as someone who's in the public eye, you can turn any publicity into something beneficial. There are loads of people who are big just because they are contentious in some way. Like the whole there's no bad press thing is kind of true. And so no matter what level of toxicity you're getting, no matter what's happening to you, there is a way to make something positive out of it. It's like the shit analogy. It's like some people cry because they've got shit on their hands and other people make it into bricks and build houses. And I kind of want to be the second category because there is a way to make something good out of everything. Everything is an opportunity.
I agree. I think you can never get rid of toxicity. It's always going to be there. You're always going to get hate no matter what, and it's up to you to decide what to do with it. However, that may be beneficial to you.
I just think it's really important that you have to keep in mind that you will incur a great like emotional or mental or psychological cost to do so. And it's up to you to figure out like what level you can bear. So like Devin said, like Devin and a lot of people don't read any type of comments whatsoever on the internet because it's just not worth it. You destroy your mind doing it. And I think it's good to be cognizant of like what level of engagement can I take in certain things that's healthy to me versus like this is too much. Like even though I'm getting response out of it, like mentally it's destroying me, and now I need to take like a month break like every year because I can't deal with it. Everybody kind of has to figure out like where that line is for them for how much they can handle.
I think it's different for everyone.
For sure.
It's not a one solution fits all.
Yeah.
I suppose I would want to just highlight the previous analogy that I made that was preventative versus surgical, right? Like that there are both of these aspects to community building. Like Destiny said and Lily said, we tend to hover on either side. So for me, like I don't, I can't wade into the front lines and the trench warfare and like battle the dude on Reddit that has like a 6-page comment thread about me. But like what I can do is I can encourage my community to be positive and do that by positive reinforcement, things like gifting subs to individuals, highlighting positive comments in chat instead of negative ones, and taking an active stance on that. That's preventative. And then surgically removing toxicity, not letting people know that that's not okay. And I think every one of us has that kind of responsibility as a content creator. And the last thing that I would say is that every single person on this call and listening in this chat makes a difference. And like one of the things that I've realized as the world is kind of like taking a turn towards a lot of these issues is that everybody's voice is really important. And the fastest way to stop feeling like this is a huge problem that is just insurmountable that you can't control is to actually be a part of fixing it and send a positive message in chat today, or highlight somebody on one of your broadcasts. One thing we didn't talk about a lot are these smaller creators, and I talk to smaller creators all the time. There are smaller creators that they get one negative comment and it impacts them for days because they just get because of the scale they get so few. Sending a small positive comment to a smaller creator can make the difference between them broadcasting the next day and not. You can make a huge difference in that way. So never the people in chat and everyone who's listening to this, never underestimate your ability to make a small difference that it will actually turn into a large one through the ripple effect of changing that as a community. The only way that we will change this community is if we all do it together.
Stay positive.
Felix, you want to say anything? Muted. Boomer.
Sorry, I have like a really weird like this room becomes like a hot box if I don't have like a fan on or like I don't air out the room somewhere. So I start like mentally dying, dude, because of all the
don't worry
heat.
about it, man. Yeah, so
yeah, is this like a closing thoughts type of thing?
yeah, you're dying
Listen.
from heat.
No. I'll be honest. I get a lot of flack from my community being like bad and toxic, and I had reservations of coming on the podcast to begin with because I didn't want to come here like some sort of like above the issue, like I know better or something like that. I want to, but you respond that you want me to give perspective. I think some communities do well at gradually turning toxicity into like good banter. And I feel like when good banter comes, people that were more like negative, when they start seeing like their negative comments as like more like a harmless joke by stopping like the overly negative stuff, they can start like saying more, nice banter also. Like no, like I said earlier, not only lols, but now they're gonna slip in like a pog. I think you can channel that, and I think somebody that does that very well is Forsen, whereas community will like shit on him a lot for doing poorly, but they will highlight when he does well, right? And it's not harmful. Like they're not like very very toxic. And I've been trying to channel it that way, and I think there's a way to do that. But when it comes down to stuff like I said earlier about the voice or about Tourette's, thing that you can't change, I think people have to be decisive and slice the bread and ban and do the right things before it grows into something that it
Yeah, so thank you guys so much. I mean, I think, Felix, I didn't realize that your community had a reputation for being toxic. It really had took me. I mean, I didn't know that. I mean, overall, my experience on Twitch as a consumer for over a decade before I started streaming has been overwhelmingly positive. I think the gaming community, oftentimes, myself included, we kind of play into the stereotype that they're like all degenerates and stuff. We're all degenerates. I think overall, like, it's an amazing community. I think that a lot of what we've seen, like, I don't know how else to describe this, but you guys know, like, sometimes YouTube can just be an absolute cesspool of hatred and lack of understanding. And we had a stream now several months ago where people came on and talked about porn addiction. So, like, and the comments on our porn addiction stream in YouTube is some of the most inspiring shit that I've ever read. It's like you take something that is so meme worthy as like being addicted to pornography and jerking off too much, and you stick it on a place like YouTube, which is just a cesspool of like filth when it comes to comments. And somehow like something magical happens when you like give people, it's just like when you have a kid who's acting out. If you actually like give that kid a little bit of faith and a little bit of responsibility, it's amazing what that kid can do. And so at the end of the day, I think sometimes you guys are talking about like really, really challenging situations. Like when Devin says it's got to come from the top down, and I understand exactly what you mean. Like, I think that makes a lot of sense. I hear a lot of you guys dealing with ultimately what feels like unsolvable problems. Like you learn how to manage it well by banning stuff and things like that. You can only engage in so many people in conversation. Anita's like, I try to educate as much as I can, and that sounds like fucking exhausting and very taxing, and also wonderful that you do that and you make the world a better place. But each person can only give so much. And at the end of the day, my experience, coming back to what Devin was saying, which I thought was like a great call to action, is like, we're ultimately like, I think when we say like, oh, like Valve needs to do this, or Riot needs to do this, or someone else needs to do this, I actually sort of like kind of disagree. I mean, I understand the merit of what you're saying, but in my experience, it just takes like what Felix was saying about, bystanders when there's toxicity towards women. In my experience, you can be enough for like turning around a particular MOBA game just by not being toxic. And I think that there's also kind of this perception that you have to try really hard to like reform people. I don't do that. I actually find that saying a few things is actually sufficient. And asking like a simple question like, hey, do you think we can actually, it's like 4-2, you guys are down by 2 kills at 5 minutes, and be like, hey, do you actually think this is, I'm confused. Like, are you just pissed off and expressing frustration? Or do you actually think like this is done and like, should we AFK? And
I have one thing about that. I feel like as a player who is like more on like the not giving up side, but more like the like ready to be negative side, or like like ready to lose my mind. What I noticed introspectively when I was trying to get better, because I got banned like 7 accounts in League of Legends, is that when somebody is facing bad comments, adversity, self like poor performance, somebody who still like stands tall and is willing to see the good and is willing to do the right thing to win and to interact, it's very inspiring for people that are around them.
So yeah, I mean, I think there are a couple of big takeaways for me from this conversation. The first is that the first person who does something gets squashed, but that there are actually ripple effects down the road that make all the subsequent actions easier. Whether it be the first person in the Yale math program, whether it be like the first person that Anita engages with in terms of educating Tourette's, whether it's like the first response video that you give to a hate video that like arms people for further conversations. I think we're looking, like the big takeaway that I have from this conversation is that you're looking at like, you're going to lose a battle. And the early ones, you're just going to take a bunch of L's before you start seeing W's. And that's just like it is with a video game, right? Like if I pick up League of Legends, I'm going to see a bunch of L's before I start to see W's. And my experience with gaming is that I actually think it just takes 10% of the player base to change the culture of a MOBA. That's my hypothesis. And the reason that I say that is that, like, if someone is toxic and then one person says, hey, man, can you just be like a little bit less of an asshole and can we try to win? Like, imagine how epic it's going to feel if we win this game. And then they're going to troll you. They're going to flame you. They're going to call you a simp. They're going to call you a cock, white knight, whatever. And then you feel like you lost that. And then in the next game, if someone says the same damn thing, and then in the third game, in the fourth game, in the fifth game, in the sixth game, in the seventh game, if people say, hey, man, do you want to actually try to win or do you just want to troll us? If that happens for 6 games in a row where just one person speaks up, I think MOBAs would be a completely different place.
Yeah. But it takes like a really strong like foot soldiers in front. I think you have to be like great to inspire good, right? You have to not let people, like, if you have a mentality of like going against trash, you have to be strong to like take the heat and take like the backlash and continue keeping that mentality without letting it be damaged by others.
So yeah, that's a super hard thing to do. Like I've gone through periods of playing League where I'm like, okay, guys, we are gonna fucking min-max for positivity. Like if people are being mean, we're gonna tell other teammates not to get down. Like I can do that for like some time, but after a while, it's like, all right, listen. If these motherfuckers are gonna do dumbass shit, I'm gonna do dumbass shit because fuck this game. If I'm gonna lose, yeah, I'm gonna teach this guy a lesson. All right. Yep, 100%. It's hard to do it over an extended period of time. And I've had like 3 or 4 periods on my stream where it's like, we're going to be relentlessly positive. But man, I can only handle so many of those games. It's like, all right, fuck it. Time to get it down into the mud and roll around with the pigs. Fuck this shit.
I mean, so I think that's where, like, if I just could offer a touch of feedback, I don't think you should be relentlessly positive. That's exhausting. So what you should be is authentic and tell your teammates, man, do I feel like trolling you guys. You guys are fucking pissing me off.
I don't think you know. I don't think you know what authentic means. No.
Okay, maybe I need to play more. I need to queue with you guys more often on League of Legends.
You should play with Steven. It's an experience.
Yeah, if Destiny was authentic, he'd be deplatformed in literally half a day.
So
it's something else.
So I think maybe this is one of those things where I think I know better, but maybe I'm just a naive idiot when it comes to this. But Felix,
I'm actually flattered at how highly you think of us. Thank you. And me in particular. Thank you.
I think y'all are awesome. Really?
Because you haven't queued League. That's good. With us or me, yeah.
I mean, yeah, so we'll see. We'll see if you can change my mind. But Felix, I think what you said about, it takes like a lot of people like foot soldiers on the front line. And I think that's actually like, it takes a great person to inspire good. Beautifully said. And I think that actually segues into like, so the whole reason we put on this stream is because we're trying to appreciate our communities and our mods this week. And I think when it comes to people who are great, who inspire good and are foot soldiers on the front lines of dealing with toxicity, it's the mods. At the end of the day, like, we talk about our communities and stuff coming from the content creators, but for all of the inspiration that you guys offer, it's the mods that are actually reading the comments It's the mods that are actually banning the toxicity. It's the mods that are dealing with all the frustration and hate, and they're like, what's the matter? Can't take a joke? It's the mods who actually make Twitch and our communities run. And I think it's awesome. And if you think about like, what's the difference between League of Legends and the communities that we build? It's the presence and absence of mods. Right? Because Twitch, Riot, whatever, like, I don't know how similar or different they are. But if you think about what makes our communities what they are, I genuinely think you look at your Reddits, you look at your subreddits, you look at your Discords, you look at your Twitch. It's the mods. And so, like, props to them, because I think they're the very definition of what Felix is describing, which is like great, inspiring good, and on the front lines that are, I mean, even when when Destiny's talking about the response video, that they go out and then fight the battle for you. I know that especially recently, I felt very alone as a streamer, and I think like the internet came out to support me and had my back, and it felt amazing. And like, I think we really don't, I mean, they're really the unsung heroes in my mind, because they're the ones that build the communities that we participate in. So props to them.
Right.
Do you guys want to meditate? Because sometimes we do that at the end of stream. How do you
group thing?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I think
let's do it.
So normally, okay. Oh, we're going to do a fun one. Okay, we're going to do a fun meditation. I was going to say we should do Om chanting, because that's usually what I teach people in person. But the Om doesn't come through very well on Discord's voice activation algorithm. If you just emit a constant sound, it drops off. So we're going to try to do a fun meditation, which could be really challenging and is maybe really easy. It's going to be a little bit different. Okay. The downside is that people at home are going to have a lot of trouble participating. So, y'all game to try something a little bit different? It's almost like a game. Okay.
Let's do it.
So what we're going to do is we're all going to close our eyes, and we're going to try to count to 20 as a group.
Oh, it's like an improv thing.
But yeah, go ahead, Felix.
How do we sit?
We sit up straight. Do you need help?
Okay.
Do you need a refresher on how to sit? I can teach you, because you're fucking tall.
I was wondering if you wanted to go like sideways or like that's okay.
No, so if you should sit with your back straight. And if you guys don't know how to sit with your back straight, there's a very, very simple principle, which is that your knees should be lower than your hips. If your knees are lower than your hips, so I'll demonstrate, or I'll try to. I'm going to take this. Okay, so I'll just demonstrate very quickly, okay? So when I sit cross-legged, I'm going to slouch. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you guys look at like meditative postures, right? So then you have Ardha Padmasana, which is like this, and then it's easier to sit up straight. And then you have, this is going to chair. And then you have Padmasana, right? And so you guys notice how my knees are going down with each one, and it's easier.
Yeah.
You guys don't need to sit like this. But now what I'm going to show you guys, so if I'm sitting in my chair like this, I'm going to slouch, okay? And then what I'm going to do is if I sit forward and then I keep my feet out in front of me, so Felix, you may want to try this unless your back looks curved.
It is definitely curved.
So sit at the edge of your chair. Are you sitting cross-legged?
No, I'm straight-legged.
Okay, and then put your feet out in front of you. And then what happens to your back?
Is it straight?
I don't know. You tell me.
It looks straight.
Okay, good. So if that's comfortable, you can sit like that. Okay. So then what we're going to do, so we're going to count to 20, but we're going to do it with our eyes closed. And there's going to be like a particular rule, okay? Which is that no discussion about who, so we're going to count to 20 as a group. So we want to hear one number at a time. And if two people speak at the same time, we start over from the beginning. Does that make sense? So eyes closed, and I'm not going to participate, okay? And let's begin.
One.
2,
3,
4,
5,
6,
Wait, where's Anita?
Gotta start over.
I think-
No
I
talking.
think
No, I can't. Yeah, I can't. You don't want me to unmute myself during this. That would be a
You-
bad idea.
Okay, so if Tourette's, Anita, we won't count. But Anita, you should participate too.
I think so too.
Okay, we're starting over. So if anyone talks or opens eyes, we start over.
Okay,
But
so are we meant
Anita's
to count
Tourette's doesn't.
out?
No, or Anita, your Tourette's doesn't count. So we'll ignore that.
I thought we had to all sing at once, like
Nope.
one.
No. Just one person at a time. And if two people speak at the same time, you have to start over.
Okay.
Fuck off. Okay.
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 No.
Okay, eyes closed.
1,
3,
4,
5,
6.
8,
9,
I think Anita, you said 8, right, Anita? Okay, so start over. Eyes closed. Good job.
1,
2,
3,
4,
4.
Start over.
1.
1,
Oh.
1,
2,
3,
4,
5,
6,
7.
8. Reset.
Okay, reset.
1,
2,
3,
4,
5,
6,
7.
7.
Okay, Devin.
No strategizing. No strategy. Y'all get there. We're going to go to 10. Okay? Don't worry about 20. Let's get to 10.
1,
2,
3,
4,
5,
6,
7,
8,
10.
So close. Almost there.
I think it counts. I think it counts. I said it. Okay.
Nope.
This is going to take longer than the actual talk.
You
1.
can't keep saying the same number over and over again.
No, no,
Keep
no.
saying 2 and 5.
It's Lily, no strategizing. You guys are almost
Okay,
there. So what I want you to do, so guys, the goal of this practice is to feel each other, right? So I want you to pay attention. So let's pause for a second. I want you to pay attention to what's happening in your mind when you do the practice. You're fully tuned in to the people that you're with. You're listening, you're paying attention. Should I speak? Should I not speak? You're certainly not thinking about toxicity. You're certainly not thinking about hate. You're not thinking about your communities. You're not thinking about what you had for dinner. That's why it's a good meditative practice. It's not about succeeding or failing. It's about bringing your mind to the present. So let's try one more time. Or
1.
again.
1,
2,
3,
4,
5,
6, 1,
2,
3,
4,
5,
6,
7.
7. Reset. 1,
2,
3,
4,
6,
7.
7. Reset. 1,
3,
breakfast. 4,
6,
7.
8,
9,
10.
Fantastic. Y'all cheated a little bit, but that's okay. We'll let it slide.
Did we cheat?
Yeah.
Listen,
You guys started developing a pattern, but that's okay.
yeah,
Wait, are we not allowed to do that?
You're not supposed to.
Devin
But it's-
Devin is chickening me, dude. He's chickening me.
always Devin.
So that was what was that? Was that okay for you guys? What was that like?
I like that. I thought that was really fun.
Yeah. And so I think this is actually, it's my favorite introduction meditation to do when I'm working with a group of people, because it brings you to the present. You're actually focused. You're paying attention. You're trying to like feel the other person, right? And actually what you don't want to do is your mind to do a logical thing, which you guys ended up doing anyway, ends up happening, which is okay. But you guys developed a pattern. It was fantastic. I think y'all.
You know, I feel okay. Here's my read. Lily tries to fix the problems. Devin waits somebody does something. Destiny tries to go before the curve, and I try to moderate the whole thing. And that was my yeah.
Yeah, right? It's cool like how you get to feel another person's like effort and involvement. It's actually a really fantastic exercise to try to develop the empathic part of your brain. Because you're like, okay, what is Destiny trying to do? Because you can see so much effort being exerted by lots of different people without any words or discussion. And once you start to understand what other people are doing without any communication, it really helps you like communicate and understand other people. It's a fantastic empathy building exercise. Literally trains the part of your brain that allows you to connect with and interpret what another human being is trying to do. Because you take words out of it. So listen, guys, thank you all very much. I think we're going to probably try to do this with our mods, and we'll try to get them to 10 or maybe 20 if you want to go hard mode. And thank you guys so much for everything that you do for Twitch. Do you guys want to, just for people who came in late, do y'all want to just introduce who you are and where people can kind of check you out before we say goodbye?
No. Say goodbye. I say goodbye.
Okay. Okay.
XQC
Actually, just kidding.
XQC doesn't have to shout himself out.
XQC, this was Sweet Anita, LilyPichu, Devin Nash, and Destiny, and the main channel was HealthyGamerGG. Thanks for watching. We love you guys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Beautiful, guys.
Outro.
Thank you.
Excellent outro. Take care, guys. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
That's a good meditation. I haven't been able to teach that for a long time. Felix, bringing it home.